of the vast unknown. UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, conspiracies and cover-ups. And to the Parabnormal we go with Jeremy Scott.
Live from the Oregon Ghost Conference in Seaside, it is Into the Parabnormal, and I'm Jeremy Scott. Good to be with you here, back in the flesh after a 3-year absence. I hope all of you are well, and thank you so much for joining us here at the Oregon Ghost Conference. It's always awesome to come out here to do the show and to talk with such great people who I wouldn't get the opportunity to speak to otherwise. And one of those is right here with me as we're kicking off without any further ado. She is Karen Frazier. Hi, Karen. How are you?
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you are a psychic medium, you're a channeler, you're an energy healer, you're a Reiki master teacher. You write and teach about spiritual, metaphysical, paranormal, and vibrational energy healing. You explore topics such as dream interpretation, metaphysics, alchemy, crystals, psychic phenomena, and the survival of consciousness after death. Does that about sum it up?
I like to cook. I like to cook, and I make cocktails, too, so there you go.
Well, I guess you do it all. So what was your presentation about here at the Oregon Ghost Conference?
So I have a couple. I did a singing bowl concert last night, a sound healing concert, and then today I taught a class about energy healing. And this evening I'm talking about poltergeists. So I'm kind of running the gamut in topics.
Okay. So you intrigued me when you said poltergeist. Now, when we talk about poltergeists, how do you define those?
I define a poltergeist as recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, something called RSPK. Mm-hmm. It is actually a parapsychological concept, and it is basically bursts of psychokinetic energy, whether from a living person or a spirit, that causes things to move and things to happen, noises, knocks, things that fly across rooms.
Yep.
Usually not that epic, but sometimes that.
Yeah, so noisy but past kind of disruptive, to put a wrench in between you and, I don't know, maybe someone. I've heard stories about these poltergeists like interfering in relationships and that sort of things.
They can, and typically the poltergeists that interfere in relationships come from human beings living human beings versus spiritual energy. Sometimes it is spiritual energy.
What do you mean by that?
So you've heard probably of the typical teenage girl, right, who is the poltergeist. She is going through adolescence, and all of a sudden plates start flying out of the cupboards and
Yep.
pans start. So that is it's a stereotype, but it's a stereotype for a reason, that during adolescence, for instance, a teenage girl or a teenager, period, has all of these feelings based on hormones that they don't understand, and they bury them, and it comes out as bursts of energy. And so it can be any living person who's having suppressed emotional issues that can cause these bursts of energy. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times when they interfere in relationships like that, it's that there are relationship issues that are occurring, and that somebody is releasing that energy unknowingly through these bursts of psychokinesis.
Would you think that everything or everyone has some sort of energy?
Oh, we all have energy, absolutely. And I really wish that I was somebody who could do this and make things move. I can't. I would love to. But
what would you do if you could use that power?
If I could use that power, honestly, I would sit on the couch and let the dishes do themselves.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Isn't that known as the dishwasher, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I digress.
Or kids, but my kids are adults, so. But you still have to rinse them. You have to wash the dishes before
true.
you put them in
That's
the dishwasher.
True. Okay, fair
Yeah.
enough.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Any
So
other
what else
thing
would
you'd use
I
that
do?
for?
I think I might use it to mess with my dogs or my kids or things like that.
Yeah.
Just for fun.
Like, take stuff, move it around, that sort of thing. Like,
Sure.
We've all lost our car keys or our wallet
Oh,
or
I lose my
our
car
cell
keys
phones
all the
or
time.
whatever.
That's just what happens. So I could use it to find my car keys, maybe levitate them and bring them to me, so I could spend a lot less time looking for them.
So, can energy be used to heal?
Absolutely. So yes and no. Energy, we are all energy. You're energy. I'm energy. Everybody listening to us or watching us is energy. And so we all have energy that flows through us. And when that energy becomes disrupted in some way, it leads to symptoms, whether it's illness, whether it's physical illness, mental illness, spiritual issues, relationship issues. All of those things are the result of disrupted energy. And so you can undisrupt that energy by either applying energy or absorbing energy, and that's how you can bring about healing.
And through what methods?
Oh, well, it can be anything. It can be intention. You can use crystals. You can use hands-on energy healing like Reiki. People use affirmations and visualizations for that, meditation for that. I do sound healing for it, and I also do Reiki. Well, you know, you read. You listed them.
Sound healing.
Yes.
That's an interesting one. Sound
Sure.
is very powerful.
Yeah, sound is incredibly powerful. So I have a background in music, so sound is incredibly important to me. And when I started working in energy healing, I really realized that I wanted to bring this musical background that I had into my healing work. And so you can do sound healing simply by chanting mantras like Om, or by chanting vowels or things like that. But you can also do it through things like I do, like playing singing bowls, which is way more fun than chanting.
So explain that process and what the idea of that is.
So sound is vibration, right? If there was not a vibration coming from my voice and striking your eardrums, you wouldn't be hearing me speak. The vibration comes from me, it strikes your eardrums, and you hear it. So sound is vibration, and everything that we are is vibration. We're vibrational energy. We're a bunch of little bits of energy that have come together to form something that's seemingly solid, but really what we are vibrating strands of energy. And sometimes those vibrating strands of energy don't vibrate at quite the right frequency to present as health or well-being. And so with sound, I can play a frequency that basically tunes someone else's energy using a principle of physics called entrainment, which I would be happy to explain if you want. And that entrainment can bring the energy to a different degree so that the body energy or the spiritual energy is vibrating in a more optimal state, and that can create healing.
And can humans pick up this sound, or is it on a frequency that we have to tune into?
Oh, on the sound healing? No, they're singing bowls, so it sounds like me playing a bunch of really peaceful bells.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So people don't need to train themselves in order to, or anything that they need to, any way that they need to prepare themselves for this, clear their mind, anything like that?
Well, I always tell people to be open to it, because the person who is not open to healing is probably not going to heal. And so if somebody were to come to my sound bath or sound healing, I have them lay down or get comfortable as they can. I ask them to just focus on the noise and focus on the sound. I shouldn't call it noise. Focus on the sound and the vibration, and just allow whatever comes up to arise. Allow it, release it. And if you notice your mind wander, return it to the sound. So it's like a focus meditation, but it's a vibrational focus meditation.
And this works on people and pets? Does it?
Yes, plants, people,
Plants?
pets, plants, the universe.
Inanimate
as a whole.
objects? Things
Sure.
that aren't living?
Everything vibrates. So
Okay.
although a rock isn't living, it's still vibrating.
Some folks be living under a rock. But
Haven't we all been living
I
under a
digress.
rock recently?
So can you use this energy healing in order to influence things that are happening?
So kind of.
Okay.
And by that, what I mean is that if you bring your own vibration to the highest frequency you can through entrainment, you can also raise the vibration of other things, because basically entrainment is that objects vibrating at different frequencies in proximity to one another meet somewhere in the middle. So the lower vibration thing rises, the higher vibration thing lowers. And so if you vibrate higher and you are next to someone who vibrates lower, their vibration is going to come up. Yours is going to come down a little bit, but you know how to reset it to bring it back up.
Okay, how do we reset it?
You reset it through meditation. You reset it through healing practices, through going out in nature. That's how I reset. Nature is my church. I go out in nature. I sit with my back against a tree. I stand on the edge of a canyon. I do things like that. That's how I recharge. People have other ways they do it, but it's doing things that are positive and make you feel good.
Yeah. So how do you use your gifts as a psychic medium to deal with what we perceive to be ghosts?
Oh boy, how long you have? How long you have me here for?
12 minutes.
12 minutes. So a lot of ways. So first of all, I can perceive where things are happening because I have what I call my spidey sense. I walk into a room and I can feel where.
I think we all have a little bit of that.
Yeah,
just a little
I
bit.
have a lot of spidey sense. Like I walk into a room and I go, so, and as soon as my spidey sense goes off, I know I can tell, for instance, if I'm working with a team, I can tell them, hey, set up your equipment here, spend some time here. You can try to communicate. You can see what's going on. For me, my goal mostly are two things. First of all, I want to work with the living people because I want to help them to understand what's happening, and I want to help them to achieve a level of comfort in knowing what's happening, why it's happening, and how they can either communicate with it or create a space where maybe it doesn't occur when they sleep, or it occurs outside of their house instead of inside of their house. So I always want to work with the living people. And then on the dead people side, I communicate with them and I find out what's going on. I ask them, why are you here? What's going on? Is there something I can help you with? I talk to them about, you don't have to be here. If you'd like to go, you can. I never tell them they have to. But I just let them know the options that are available to them, and so that they can choose maybe something else. Because for some spirits that are sticking around, it's serving their highest good to be around still. They need to still be what I call ego identified with their living person versus their soul. And they need that for something that has to do with the journey of their higher spirit. And those are the types of things I try to find out. And then I just let them know the things they can do.
The saying goes, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Dealing with ghosts, have you ever had like stubborn ghosts that didn't want to, but whoever you were dealing with was adamant that this spirit be banished?
So I'm not a big banishing person. So yes, I've seen that. And basically what it becomes is a negotiation where we broker a peace, where we come up with a way that, look, you can stay here, but don't bother us. Don't bug my kids. Don't bug my animals. As a matter of fact, I have some spirits in my house. They choose not to leave. And I've just told them, don't bug me when I'm sleeping, because I hate to be awakened by stuff like that, and don't bug my dogs. And when my kids were small, it was don't bother my kids too. Yeah. And so, yeah, you just come up with a way. You basically mediate. So I'm kind of a mediator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that they obey those ground rules that you lay down?
Well, people are people, right? Some people obey ground rules.
And so are ghosts, right?
It's not obey, it's respect.
Yeah.
I don't like the word obey, because you're talking about people who are disembodied. So there's still people who are behaving like people if they're ego identified. And therefore, it's not necessarily obey, it's respect for boundaries. And if they didn't respect people's boundaries in life, chances are they may not respect people's boundaries after they've passed.
True.
And if that's the case and you just can't broker a peace, it may be time for the living people to move on or just learn to live with it.
Yeah, learn to live with it.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. What about
Yeah.
consciousness? I've always been fascinated by consciousness. The audience knows that. We've done many shows about consciousness. It's still a mystery that hasn't been solved. I think we're closer now, though, than we've ever been. I also think that consciousness is kind of what relates everything together as we talk about under the paranormal or the parabnormal umbrella. How do you view consciousness?
I view consciousness as the energy from which we came before we were born and to which we return after we die. And consciousness is just an energy that underlies everything. And really, although we exist in separate embodied vehicles of consciousness, my consciousness is no different than yours. We are the same. We just have different shells around it. So consciousness is merely source energy. We come from it, we return to it, and it's with us the entire time we're in bodies as well.
So does it survive us after death?
Consciousness, I believe it does. I've had enough experiences in talking to spirits both on this side and the other side. I've had life between life hypnotherapy sessions, which is amazing. I've had past life regression hypnotherapy sessions. I've interviewed a lot of people who have had things like near-death experiences and all of those things, and I 100% believe that it survives bodily death, because you cannot destroy energy. You can only change its form.
Without consciousness, do you think that maybe some of this ghostly phenomenon wouldn't then be possible?
I can't imagine there not being consciousness? I can't answer that question because I don't know, because consciousness just is.
If we take consciousness out of the equation, I guess, then what's left?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of what I'm saying.
It's a head scratcher, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like those kinds of questions.
Yeah, me too. Those are the ones that make you lay awake at night staring at the ceiling thinking about.
What about contact with the dead? Have you interacted with deceased spirits, and I guess in what capacity?
As a medium, I do actually readings for people. It's not my primary thing as a medium, but sometimes when I'm doing a psychic reading with someone, dead people come through. I've done it on investigations. I sometimes just will go somewhere when we travel and I'll have it happen spontaneously. And so, yeah, I mean, I interact with them all the time. Is that what you asked? I forgot the question.
Yeah, maybe can you tell us about some of those stories of contacting, spirits on the other side, maybe some of the messages that they've sent back for the living?
Sure, I can't tell specifics because I believe in being very confidential with my clients. But I can tell you about when my father died, and he came back and talked to me. My dad passed about 3 years ago. He died of cancer, and it was very sudden, which it sounds weird with cancer, right? But he was diagnosed, and 2 weeks later, he was gone.
Wow. Sorry.
And thank you. And we were in the hospice with him, and as he was dying, and my mother and sister are very religious. They were also in the room with us. And I didn't want to tell them anything that I was experiencing because it would scare them. But my husband was with us as well, and I actually felt spirits come in from my father, and I actually signaled to my husband and said, this is going to be his last breath, and it was. And as we were driving back to the hotel, you're kind of numb when that happens, right? As we were driving back from the hotel, I kept hearing my dad's voice. And I kept thinking, well, this is just wishful thinking. This isn't really happening. This isn't real. And he was describing all these things, and I'm seeing this, and this is happening. And my husband went down to the car to get something in the hotel room, and I kept hearing this. And I said, Dad, I know this isn't you. This is just wishful thinking. And he pulled my hair. Somebody actually yanked my hair, and he said, God damn it, Karen Lynn, listen to me. So... yeah.
Was that a one and only appearance, or have there been others?
He has come to me through mediums. I hear from him from time to time, but I still believe it's wishful thinking sometimes.
Okay, so if somebody's like listening to this or watching this and they're thinking, I think I'm getting a message from so and so.
Yeah.
Are there things that maybe they can try to determine whether or not they're actually interacting with that person or not?
Yeah. So the easiest way for spirits to come to people who are struggling with it is dreams. When somebody dies, it's not going to be right away. Sometimes it's right away, but usually it's a few weeks to a few months before they come to you. And it's easier to come to somebody when they're asleep because they set aside that stuff that I had with my dad. This isn't you. This is wishful thinking, right? When you're asleep, all of your defenses are down. And so they come to you, and it's a very real dream. So real, it's almost hyper real. It feels very different. Those are visitation dreams. That's one way. Sometimes they'll leave things for you. They'll send signals. You can even say, if this is you, leave me a penny on the bed, like where you wouldn't find a penny or something. And I've done that before and found a penny on the bed and found a penny on the piano and all of those things.
Dreams, are those more important than we believe?
Well, it depends. Some of them. A lot of dreams are just common processing dreams. They're you going through your day, sorting your memories, putting them away. But when you have the dream where you wake up the next morning and think, holy crap, what did I eat last night? Was it pizza? That was such a weird dream. Those are usually symbolic dreams, and it is your higher self trying to tell you something or your shadow self trying to tell you something.
Very interesting. Author KarenFrazier.com, your website. Any other links folks should follow? Tell us about your products, your services, what you offer.
So I have written a lot of books. My two most recent books are The Ultimate Guide to Psychic Abilities and Essential Crystal Meditation. You can find them wherever you can get books. And, if you go to my website, I've written a lot of books, so we don't have time for me to list them all. But a lot of them, they're in the energy healing, psychic, and crystal space.
Fantastic. I appreciate you so much coming on, joining us here live from the Oregon Ghost Conference. Let's hear it for Karen Frazier, and we'll have Ross Allison and Chad Goodwin coming up here in just a couple of moments, ladies and gentlemen, so stick around for that. And I also want to let you know it will be back here on Sunday as well for those listening in Portland on FM News 101 KXL. If you're thinking about what to do on Sunday, there's another full day of events coming here at the Oregon Ghost Conference. Sunday, a full day here at the Seaside Civic and Convention Center. Karen, tell me this. Have you ever in any of your encounters or dealings ran away screaming, vowing never to return?
Yes, I have. But yes, at the Lewis County Historical Museum one night, we were sitting and watching some things, really weird things happening and lights and things, and all of a sudden there was a huge bang, and I thought, holy crap, somebody just drove by and shot out the windows. And so my vowing, running, and screaming to run away was because I thought people were shooting at us. It turned out that what it was a pen at the sign-in book that was about 20 yards away, had been thrown violently by an unseen hand from the front desk and bounced off a display, and it sounded like somebody was shooting out the windows. But it was because I thought we were being shot at that I was scared.
But no ghostly encounters or something that you've backed down from.
No.
So no matter how noisy or evil or threatening they can be, you're still going to be right there investigating.
I'm going to run toward them.
You're going to run toward them.
Yeah.
That's my kind of gal.
Yeah.
Live here from the Oregon Ghost Conference, we'll return. Ross Allison and Chad Goodwin coming up. I'm Jeremy Scott from the cold, dark depths of a secret dungeon somewhere deep in the remote Pacific Northwest.
Come in this room. Come touch me.
Touch, one of the five senses we can't live without. It helps guide us through our lives. Touch gives us warmth and comfort, as well as pain and suffering. But what about those stories of people getting touched by ghosts and spirits? People getting scratched and molested by something unseen? How is this happening? Is it real or fabricated? And if it is real,
Are you trying to touch me?
what could it mean?
Even though science has yet been able to prove or disprove these strange encounters, through the years of patterns and consistency, shows us the phenomenon is true.
I think you're on the right path. I think you're at kind of a precipice where you can clearly show that humans have an experience that has an objective piece to it, which at the very least should get other scientists interested in looking at that question.
My whole research process is trying to bring in a more scientific basis. People need to understand that this is not just your bells and whistles that you see on ghost hunting shows. This is real science.
I'm going to really do my best to try to find information and data that suggests that this is a real thing that we're looking for.
It was here in D Block that changed everything for me and for Nick.
Great deal.
Hey, you in the corner here that touches people. You around here? Really? Scratch me? Oh, I'm red.
At the exact time that I was scratched, looking at the larger data set, you can see anomalies in the PIR and ultrasonic sensors. We can use that data to then create an animation showing what happened in approximate real time. So it looks like whatever it was moved toward me and then away very quickly.
When dealing with the paranormal, you have to be prepared for just about anything when the spirits are truly the ones in charge. The question is, how does the body perceive these experiences? What are the cause and effects of when this happens? And most of all, how do you prove these intimate encounters? For the first time in history, our journey into this untapped realm has only just begun.
Into
There you have it. It's the trailer for Parasense, which debuted right here at the Oregon Ghost Conference last night at the Times Theater. And in the film Parasense, The Naked Experiments, Ross Allison uses his 30 years of experience in the paranormal field along with scientist and inventor Chad Goodwin as they try to prove the physical aspects of ghosts touching the living by taking willing individuals who are naked into haunted locations. It's good to have you guys back here again at the Ghost Conference. We talked to you last week, and we got a lot of interesting comments on the show, as I'm sure you guys have gotten a lot of interesting comments about the film. So welcome.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having us back.
So tell us about how the concept came to be, how you came up with doing this experiment, these experiments. You as a paranormal investigator of about 30 years have done a lot of investigations over the years, and it's all about learning and growing and trying to solve the next thing we've set out to, and you've set out to prove touch.
Yeah.
How did you get to this point?
Well, touch has been reported since the beginning of paranormal activity. A lot of people have had these experiences, and unfortunately, it's always been such an intimate experience. And after having a case of a young man telling me that while he was working in a brothel, something fondled him, I was just like, well, you know, it's just another one of those cases where it's their personal experience, and I have to take their word for it.
Yeah.
And I got to thinking, it's like, well, how could I prove that? And I started questioning, has anybody ever tried to prove that? And to my surprise, no one's ever took it to this level of trying to prove touch. And it just kind of took off from there. I started developing all these experiments, and I was getting some interesting results with these experiments, but I was still not getting the data that I needed to validate their personal encounter. And that's when I looked over to Chad, who I had actually done a few of his shows. He did a science show, and I thought, you know what, maybe this guy might be able to help me out.
And here's Chad Goodwin, inventor and scientist. Tell us about what you've patented and about how you come at this project.
Well, I've worked in energy storage, so I did nanostructured materials for different types of applications there, and I have a range of patents in that space. And then, you know,
wait, let's not forget the flux capacitor.
Yes, I have a patent for a working flux capacitor. It won't take you back to the future yet, but we'll see what happens.
One day.
In the future. No.
Maybe.
Anyway, so, you know, I did the radio show, and I gave Ross some ideas. He had me look at his equipment, and he just kind of inundated me with it. He was like, look at all this stuff. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. So I talked a little bit, and then kind of didn't produce anything. And then we had him on another radio show, and the same thing happened. I got busy doing stuff with experiments and whatnot.
Yeah,
and
we'd make this great connection, talking about all these great ideas
Things you were
going to
do, and then you just procrastinated.
Yeah,
he did. That's he did. Not
That's how
me.
it always
Not
happens.
me.
Yeah.
It was him. It was him.
And then, you know, 3 years later, he just gets a hold of me, and he said, hey, if you were going to prove someone was being touched by a ghost, what would you do? And I think I thought a moment and rattled off a couple of ideas, and he's like, do you want to come join me? We're going to go see if we can figure that out. And I said, sure, I'm on. And then on board, and then he told me that the people were going to be naked, and I was like, wow. But then he explained it to me, and then it made sense, and I was like, all right, we're back. We're back on board again.
So that was what got you involved, is once you heard people were going to be naked.
Well, no, I had to think. Well, yes and no.
Okay.
You know, I had to think about it for a moment, because, like, from being a scientist and then thinking about how I'm going to couple, you know, my career as a scientist and people know me, and to bring that.
Were you worried that
paranormal.
it was going to taint the image or something like that?
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things I had to think about. Like, I'm a scientist. Now I'm going to jump in and be a, you know, paranormal, try to apply science to that, and then explain that to my friends that are scientists. I don't know. For a moment, I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But then when you put it together where you have this empirical evidence of a human saying it had an experience, and then you try to couple that with scientific data, it makes sense. It starts to actually build a picture. And then I was like, you know what? I love the challenge I'm in.
So from your background, was there a method that you proposed to Ross in order to go about trying to prove what he's out to prove?
Yeah, so he brought me in, of course, and I looked at what he was working on. So the biggest thing is just truly applying the scientific method, you know, knowing that you have a baseline, you have these things that you can put against your experiments so that you can try to discern which data is more important, or if it's even important. And so I saw his process, and he was very methodical about everything, his placements of stuff, and he was doing. He had his own Spectre system going, and when I saw it wasn't just ghost hunters, ghost hunting thing like
you see on TV.
Yeah, he's like legit trying to do stuff. I was like, all right, now we can apply data collecting to that method, because that was the thing. If his methods wrong and I can't apply data collecting, then we'd have to figure out how to build a method to collect data.
Well, Ross knows from doing enough ghost investigations, like with EVPs, there's a certain amount of, clearing out or canceling out what is obviously a human voice or something. So did you guys eventually reach a point where you were trying to cancel certain things out, to remove it from your data set so you had a more finite experiment?
So EVPs are a little bit different. We're still working on experiments. We have some ideas to try to get to EVPs, but the data we got was more of environmental sensors and looking at the space, seeing if there's any heat signatures, movement, any of that from different sensors. And so...
Yeah, you have to be prepared for anything because, when you're dealing with the paranormal, you never know what's going to happen. So as we're doing these experiments, trying to get whatever's there to touch our subjects, other things are happening. We're capturing EVPs. They're seeing things. They're hearing things. Things are being, thrown at them. So it's always trying to be prepared and capturing that phenomena as well, just to show that there is something happening when we're doing these experiments. And if we can get touched, that's a bonus.
That's a bonus. Be careful what you ask for. And you did get touched, Chad, and I want you to tell us about that. But, Ross, I want you to give us a little bit more detail as much as you can about this event that kind of tipped you off in this direction, this person who reached out to you and said, hey, look, something happened to me. What was that something?
Well, he was fondled in a brothel. And again, it was just this intimate experience, and I wanted to see if I could prove that. And so that's what really got the balls rolling, and no pun intended there. But anyways, I wanted to figure out what is going to, or how are we going to prove this? And so that's when I came with various different experiments. And again, it was just still very limited on what I was able to prove, even with my Spectre system that I had put together. I've been working with for about 20 years because I had all these ideas and all these different sensors that I was using that was not being used in the paranormal field. And after I started getting some interesting results, I wanted to take it further. And that's when I called on Chad, and we sat down and we thought, gosh, how can we advance this system, because, we were just getting one element of data, and, me and Chad started thinking, it'd be nice if we could see exactly what's happening around the subject, and that's where he said, well, what we need is multiple, specters, and that's where we developed the 4 of them, and we now, have them around the subject. You got northeast, southwest, and now you can actually see what's happening around these subjects.
Almost like a 365-degree view.
Exactly.
And you need that, right? If you're trying to recreate.
Yeah.
You need what happened.
And we need to collect it quick. We're collecting data really, really fast, but we're finding even what we have, we're only having a few data points. So the resolution of it is still pretty granular, and we need to work on that, but...
So, Chad, did you believe in ghosts? Did you believe in the paranormal? Were you on the fence? Were you a partial believer? Were you a total skeptic? What mindset of that describes you?
I was, I'd had some experiences that I wondered about. I was ill once, and I had a presence of what felt like it was my grandfather next to me.
Feel like it was healing you?
Yeah, and when I left, that presence kind of left me as I left the hospital. And so I had that, and then coming into it, with him, I was like, I've had this experience, but I don't know. So, yeah, I was somewhere on the fence, because, and I kind of have to be a little bit neutral. I try to stay, so when we're looking at stuff, I'm not getting too connected to things. I'm just trying to, keep the experiences.
Are you more of a believer now with the experiments that have been done?
Yeah, I'm definitely, leaning toward, the experience. I got scratched, right? That's one of the physical things that happened that we're talking about, and you see in the trailer there that you can't really deny that something happened right then.
Yeah. Now, what happened to you was not just a scratch, but there was actually blood associated with it, which goes to prove that this happened at that moment, not something that happened before, not something that was unnoticed, but something that just happened.
What was more amazing, I thought, was there was also like an audible sound that we all heard, that, Shannon and I heard. It was like, that's what alarmed me and like brought me to it, was that sound that happened. I was like, and
It's
then
almost like a
Can you
static
describe
pop.
that sound?
yeah, it was not like it wasn't like I got slapped or something. It was like, a staticky sound. It wasn't, if you listen
Like
to
a
it,
static pop. that
yeah, it's
happened.
not like a real, it's not, it doesn't seem to be consistent.
Like, I don't know, maybe a discharge of energy or something.
Yeah.
And you immediately felt like someone put their nails into your back, or what did you feel?
No, I heard that audible sound, and then Shannon came over and looked at it, and as she was like looking at it, I could start to slowly feel that it was hurting and there was something there.
Have you ever had somebody scratch like that during a paranormal investigation, Ross?
Oh yeah, that's a phenomenon that's been constantly been reported, and it was just interesting that when he had that experience, I was grateful because we talk about these experiences, and yet we can't always prove that it was paranormal, and you always question the fact, well, maybe they rubbed up against something that they weren't paying attention to. But when you do these experiments and you look over the subject, we both, me and Chad, look them both over and make sure that there's no marks. The standard question is, do you feel any pain, any burning, stinging sensations anywhere on your body? And, and then we sit them down. They're on cameras, 20, all around them. There's like 4 to 6 cameras
Something's
on
going to
them.
happen. You're going
Right.
to capture it.
And then when you go back after the experiments and there's a scratch there, how, you can't explain that.
Yeah.
But yet, the Spectre system picked it up.
Did it pick up anything else, like a heat signature or anything?
Yeah, so we had a PIR sensor on there, so that's similar to when you like walk up to someone's door and the light turns on.
Okay.
So it's looking for passive thermal radiation signatures, and yeah, we had those sensors go off as well. Yeah, and we also had it go off once, and there was no movement on the sonics. It was just the PIR. So it doesn't always mean that every piece of data we're collecting is connected. It's there's other variables we need to find, I think.
I was asking Karen earlier if there was anything that happened to her that like sent her running or screaming or vowing never to return. Any of the participants in your experiments have something happen to them in which they said, "Get me out of here. No thanks. I've had enough."
Well, in the trailer, you hear Nick, screaming and running out of the prison,
Covering
And-
his, what?
Yeah, and it was that was the very first time we investigated Brushy Mountain Prison, and he was terrified, and he wanted to end the rest of the experiments. And so when we had the opportunity now to go back and film it more professionally, and now we have Chad on board, the new Spectre system, we decided to go back to Brushy Mountain and see if Nick will do that experiment again. Because
And?
if he has the results, we have more data to collect. And he did. He went back. He was terrified. But there was one thing, and we really didn't talk about it in the documentary, that I did notice. When he did the first experiment, it's called the bitch, and this is where he actually puts lipstick on, because that's what they would do if they were going to be passive for the men to protect them. And so when he did an experiment, he was very flirtatious, trying to get something to interact with him, and that's when he saw something, and he screamed running out of the prison. So then when he comes back, we do the exact same experiment, and I think his fear was kind of taking over him because he wasn't being as flirtatious as he was the first time. So we didn't have the exact same experience, but things were happening.
Yeah.
And then when he did the experiment in the cafeteria, that's when things got a little more interesting as well.
Do ghosts like to flirt? Have you found that is the case, or is it more like just a touch?
It's a little bit of all kinds of different things when it comes to touch. But yes, there has been a lot of sexual type of touching. And I kind of question that as well. And I think maybe that's just one of those things that they miss. That it's a constant need as a human being, You like that, you desire that, and now when you're on the other side, you don't get to have those, feelings.
So maybe it's a little bit of, I don't know, self-gratification for the
Maybe.
ghosts as well.
Maybe.
Very interesting. One of your subjects had bruises that transpired, but not immediately.
No, yeah, that was another interesting experiment where we had a female in the Seattle Underground, and she actually wasn't a believer either in ghosts, and something grabs her leg twice, and it terrified her. And then later, as she was, getting dressed and stuff, and we had taken some time because we had a bunch of experiments going on, so she had hung out with us for quite a few hours after her experiment because she needed to cool off and stop and think about what she had just experienced.
And she was scared to go home alone.
Yeah, she was scared to go home alone. And then the fact of the matter is, when she was getting dressed, that's when she noticed these red marks on her leg, and it was just it started to bruise. Yeah.
The USS Turner Joy, you also did one of these experiments on that ship. I know you've talked to us about that briefly. You actually joined us on one of our shows from the USS Turner Joy, from my recollection, a couple of years ago. Tell us about the history involved with that.
Well, the USS Turner Joy is a retired Navy destroyer, and it is a museum ship now. And for the past, I think about 10 years now, we've been doing public ghost hunts there. And we've actually had our own opportunities to do some investigations. And there's definitely some interesting phenomena where, people will see sailors wandering through the ship, a lot of strange noises, and, of course, a dark figure sitting down in the engine room. But some of the most interesting phenomena that we've ever captured is the EVPs. I mean, we're talking like Class A EVPs. Where one
audible, you can totally tell what's being said back and forth, and maybe even some responses.
Exactly.
That's what you mean by Class A, right?
Yeah, definitely. And there was one time where one of the reports is that you'll hear whistling, and there was a team of just a male and female team, and they were in the room where you would hear that whistling, and the male actually heard something. He heard what sounded like a whistle, and he turns to the woman and he says, was that you? And she's like, no, it wasn't me. And he begins to tell her, just control your breathing, make sure, because sometimes when you breathe through your nose, you can make a whistle noise, and he thought that might have been it. And right when he starts to talk about that, you can clearly hear on the recording a voice say, "It's me." Just like that, identifying that it was whoever it is made that noise.
Did you get a name?
We actually later asked, did you die on the ship? Do you know someone that died on the ship? And you clearly hear a voice say, Greenlee.
Mm-hmm.
And we do know that there was at least 6 men that served on the ship with the last name Greenlee.
Interesting. So the history fascinates you just as much as the ghost activity.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So, Chad, what needs to happen to refine that, or to get down to the nitty-gritty when it comes to the data, and really be able to use that to answer some of these additional questions, like, do the ghosts prefer men, women, certain age groups, that sort of thing? What's the next steps with this project?
Well, we really need to get serious about figuring out what data we think is important, and then figure out how to collect that data and get it all together. So things like you said, male, female. We're looking at trying to figure out different ways of tracking. We were going to track stress levels, heart rates, pulse ox, how much oxygen, all those things we're trying to build out. So we're trying to get more data from the person and their experience and the environment, and we've got some new environmental stuff we're looking at too. So it's just more data. It's all about data.
Folks can find the film at touchedbyghost.com, and it's now streaming.
It is on scarenetwork.tv.
That's Ross Allison, Chad Goodwin, touchedbyghost.com. It's Parasense, the Naked Experiments, and we're here live at the Oregon Ghost Conference. I'm Jeremy Scott, and we'll be right back.
Think you've heard it all? Just wait until Into the Parabnormal continues.
into the zone of the vast unknown. UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, conspiracies and cover-ups. Into the paranormal we go.
Exploring the possibilities of the subjects you've always wanted to know, and those you never knew existed until now. Into the Paranormal with Jeremy Scott.
From Seaside at the Oregon Ghost Conference 2022, I am Jeremy Scott from the cold, dark depths of a secret dungeon somewhere deep in the remote Pacific Northwest. It is good to have you with us here somewhere between abnormal and parabnormal. June Lundgren, a psychic medium, an animal communicator, a healer, a nurse, a demon seer, an author. She's a consultant with Northwest Paranormal Investigative Team. She comes from a long line of psychic women, mentored by her maternal grandmother. She has learned at an early age to use her gifts to help others. And as a psychic medium, June communicates with those on the other side to help the living find answers and peace. And she's also talked to animals since she was a child. Hi, June. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you here. So you're what is known as a demon seer. That's your website, demonseer.com, and folks will notice you have a lot of books under that title as well.
Yes.
And that is a term that maybe some folks might not be familiar with. So what is a demon seer?
It comes from the Gaelics, the Irish people. And a demon seer is someone who can see, hear, communicate with, and remove or kill demons.
So you come at not just from a one of those aspects as other psychic mediums. They may not have all of those aspects. They may have to bring somebody in to do the banishing.
Right. They can't. Most people, that's not their forte. It's not what they do. It's my specialty. I've been doing it for 40-some years.
Now, when we think of sear, we think of like a steak on the grill, and we're going to sear it. I don't think you're putting these demons over a hot grill, but explain the sear part. Is it just something where they just don't want to come in contact with you because you have this ability to shut them down?
A seer is someone, it comes from medieval times.
Uh-huh.
A seer is someone who is a prophet, someone who can look into the future, someone who can see. It's a psychic, basically. And what I do is I can see them. I know when they're coming before they even come. I can get into their minds. I can pull the information out of the demon's mind, know what attracted it to the individual, what it's been doing to the individual, and why it's even there.
If you tell somebody how they attracted one of these demons or attachments, do they agree that that's maybe where they got it from?
99.9% of the time, no, they don't have a clue as to where they got it.
It's kind of like COVID, right?
Yeah, right up there with it. Don't make me go there.
Okay, fair enough. So tell us about this ability and who contacts you, what kind of situations they're in, and then how does this actually manifest on your part?
Since I was a child, I've been able to see demons. It was at around 5 years of age that I actually saw them in a different way. Before that, I was seeing them as most humans do. I was seeing them either as a blob or a mass or like a shadow person. After I turned 5, around the time I turned 5, I started seeing them in their true form. And my grandmother who raised me asked, Michael, the archangel who was with me since birth, why do I see them that way? And he says, it's because you're seeing them through the eyes of an angel. You're not seeing them through human eyes. And I didn't think anything more about it. And Michael told me, I want you to watch these things. I want you to learn how they work. I want you to learn what they do and how they affect people. So as a kid, you're like, oh, okay, whatever, It wasn't until I went to the other side when I died in a motorcycle accident in 1988 when I understood and learned what was within me. When I died, I went to the other side, and Michael was waiting for me. And he said, you are not just the human shell that you are. He says, your body was created to hold the soul of Ariel the Archangel. He said, you were specifically created for that, so that she can do God's work in the physical world. so that she can remove, she's a demon slayer, so that she can remove demons in the physical world and help mankind. I'm like, really? Couldn't give me something fun and exciting? No, you have to give me that stuff. Whatever.
So were you given this role like before birth, do you believe?
Oh, yeah. That's, like I said, this is 131st lifetime. And
Of yourself?
Of Ariel being reincarnated. So
As June Lundgren.
Yeah.
In one of her previous
this,
lives.
in one of her, she's been reincarnated in all these different lifetimes, but people don't understand. It's like we're not really two separate entities. We're one. The physical body was created to house the soul that belongs to her. And so that's why I can remove a demon in a second or two. Because
it's that fast. Like snap your fingers fast.
It's that fast. Because they fear her. In the war between heaven and hell, Michael disarmed Lucifer, and Ariel disarmed his son. And so they really fear her, because she is. If she was in the physical world as a role, she would be an elite sniper, an elite Navy SEAL sniper. That's how good she is. She doesn't mince words. She hates demons. She would rather kill them as look at them.
So how do these demons appear to you? Do you see them like manifest physically, or what?
I see them with my third eye. When normal humans see a demon, they reach into your mind. They pull out your image of what a demon should look like, and they make you see it, only magnified about 10 times, to elicit the most fear that they can. They can't do that with me. When I see them in their true form. They're about 7 feet tall, 12-foot wingspan, coal black. They have almost no distinguishable features on their face. The only thing that's distinguishable is their eyes. And old demons have yellow eyes, and the younger, lesser demons have red eyes. And when you look into their eyes, you see every evil that you can imagine, and then some. It's the type of thing that will give you'll never be the same.
What word do you use to describe what you're doing? Is it like banishing, cleansing, entity removal?
I actually kill them.
You kill demons.
I actually kill them. Demons can be killed.
And so in your third eye, do you stop seeing them when they're dead? Is that
Yes.
how you know that they are no longer?
No, I see them because Ariel creates a white light sword, and with it she slices through them. And when she does, they turn into like sand, and it's spread among the stars.
And
I actually see it
dematerialize.
happen. Yeah, I actually see it happen. It's kind of cool, actually.
Have you ever had one of these like come back?
No. When they're dead, they're dead. Demons have fears. Demons have weaknesses. In my book, The Dark Side of the Paranormal, I talk about that. And one of their fears is death, because when they die, they cannot return.
Because there are demons that have been given names over the years.
Oh, sure.
And so what you're saying is if you were to cross paths with one of those demons and kill it, nobody is ever going to have an encounter with that specific demon.
Exactly.
So now the question is, if you kill one, is there one ready there to take its place?
Sure.
So you're literally playing catch
There
up.
are over 800,000 demons, give or take.
So how many have you killed?
In this lifetime, close to about 4,000 in this lifetime.
And in previous lifetimes?
Probably more than that in the previous lifetimes.
So June Lundgren is responsible for diminishing the population of demons.
Yes. It used to be in the old days, she would just send them back into the dark.
Gotcha.
But they've gotten to the point where they're out of control. So God said, from now on, you're going to kill them because they're out of control. They are going crazy. They are causing so much harm to the humans. We can't put up with that.
Yeah. So what is it like to live with demons? If somebody's listening, they may just think someone has a bad attitude, but they could be possessed.
If you have a demonic attachment, then what happens is your finances go in the toilet, your health starts declining.
Mm-hmm.
You start becoming isolated from your support system. Those who care about you are pushed away from you. They want to isolate you. They want to make you vulnerable so that they can control you.
Yeah.
And that's how they work. And eventually, when they get through having fun with you, they'll leave, or they may end up killing you.
Do you find that people are not aware that they're living with these demons?
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of
Or
times...
do they suspect it?
A lot of times they'll think, I'm a jinx, I have a curse, there's a black cloud hanging over me. And it's like, no, honey, you have a demon. No problem.
No problem for you, maybe problem for them.
Yeah, and then it's, because if somebody suspects there's something going on in their life like that, and they get a hold of me, if they send me a picture of a location or of an individual or even an animal, I know exactly what's there. I know its name. I know how it found them. I know what it's doing to them, because I can reach into the demon's mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a pretty sight.
I would imagine not. So how do you identify negative entities versus something that is not negative, may just be a ghost, just hanging out?
Quite simple. If it's a demonic, if it's an inhuman, there are certain things. You'll see infestations. You'll have putrid smells. Like I said, your life will go in the toilet, and whereas you'll feel cold within the core of your body. Has nothing to do with the 100-degree temperature outside. If it's a ghost, you're going to get cold spots. It's going to raise the hair on the back of your neck. Things like that, and they're a pain in the butt. But other than that,
because
no.
we talked about noisy ghosts earlier, so I'm trying to differentiate the noisy ghosts from the demons, because there are noisy ghosts who are poltergeist who also want to wreak havoc.
Poltergeist comes from the German word meaning noisy ghost, and it's they do things like that, whereas the demons cut to the chase. They start growling at you. They start scratching you, knocking on the doors, knocking, clicking sounds in series of 3 to mock the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So that they're essentially baiting you. They're, making your life a living hell. And I've had people that one woman was possessed for 20 years. And that was, that's horrible. I mean, she finally found me to get help. Most of the people that I talk to say, we've been searching for years for somebody to help me.
Yeah.
Years. I mean, 7 years, 10 years. People have been living with this and dealing with it and trying to deal with it. But it doesn't just affect the individual it's attached to. It affects everyone within their circle.
Mm-hmm.
It even, they can make your car break down. They can make your roof fall in. They can throw you down the stairs. They can trip you. They can reach in and grab your heart and squeeze it until it feels like you're going to have a heart attack.
Have there ever been any cases then of intervention that has led to serious harm or death that you know of?
Me intervening?
No, the demon trying to crush someone's heart.
Oh, yeah. A friend of mine, Aaron Collins.
Mm-hmm.
He's an ordained minister.
Mm-hmm.
He went with me on he wanted to go with me on a removal. So I took him with me to a place in Battleground, Washington. There was an old demon entombed in the ground. And I knew where the demon was, so I headed up the stairs. He's behind me, and his wife's with us. And the demon reached in and started squeezing his heart. It was a crushing pain. He was like, having a heart attack.
Yeah.
And I reached over and slapped the demon away. And then it tried to push his wife down the stairs. I'm like, you know what?
So you have a choice of whether or not to just kill one or not. So in this case, you didn't, want to kill it at first because it was just being pesky?
No, it was just a matter of it can reach out from a distance and do this stuff. It doesn't have to be standing in front of me and do it. And I knew where it was. It was located upstairs in one of the bedrooms. And once I got it cornered, then I told her, I said, why are you here? Why are you buried in the ground? Because I've run across these ones before, and I've just out and out killed them, so I don't have to worry about that. But I was curious. Why are you, entombed in the ground? And he wasn't going to tell me. And then Michael and Gabriel popped in and grabbed him on both sides, and they said, tell her. And it told me that it had been given an assignment by Lucifer, and it failed to do the assignment. So Lucifer was so mad that he entombed it in the ground. There's one under the rock. I've been there on a night investigation. I'm like, there's a demon down there. It's entombed in the rock. Alcatraz. It's like, it's not going to go away. I'm not taking it out. I'm just going to leave it there. But as long as it remains entombed there, other demons will be attracted and will go. And that's why there's so many of them there.
So it's not killing demons for the sake of killing demons. It's killing demons who are problems.
Yeah.
Creating problems for people.
Yeah. They're abusing people, causing problems, maybe killing animals. I was called in on a case where the family had the bird. They had it like a macaw. And the demon had twisted its head completely around, broke its neck. A rat was pulled through. A pet rat head was pulled through the bars. There's no way feasible that it could have got through the bars. Yeah. And then they were working on the service dog.
And you came in, and the dog's okay?
Yeah, dog was okay.
Okay.
I killed it, the demon.
As far as protecting oneself from demonic attachment, I know folks are, kind of ritual when they move into homes with, stuff like sage and even salt. Does that work against demons?
You can sage. That will get rid of negative energy, not negative entities. It will if they're human, but not if they're demonic. If you have a house which you suspect has demonic activity in it, and you sage it, the activity is going to ramp up massively because A, they know that you're aware of them, and B, they know you're trying to get rid of them. And it'll just ramp up. When somebody calls me for help and I make an appointment to come see them, the activity will ramp up 100%.
Because they know you're coming.
Because they know I'm coming.
And they know they don't like you.
Yeah.
So if you use the wrong thing, can that actually make the attachment worse?
It can, because you'll irritate the demon. About the only things that will help you will be a crucifix with the image of Jesus on it, or, if you're Jewish, the Star of David. Anything that you put faith in, like that will help to ward them off. Holy water over the doors and windows with a prayer. Anointing oil, same thing. I created a black salt. The recipe was given to me by Michael the Archangel and Jesus. And in the 40 years I've been using it, it has never failed. It will seal a home. It will protect against anything negative, human or inhuman. And it hasn't failed in 40 years.
Interesting. So I think I asked you earlier about the difference between a ghost and a demon, but what about negative ghosts? Because there are some ghosts who may masquerade as demons.
That happened up in Vancouver. There was a children's theater they called me in on. They said, we have this 7-foot-tall shadow man that's, just terrorizing the kids, backstage. And so I go down there and I'm like, okay. So I go in there and it's like the shadow man comes out. And I'm like, really? Really? You're a short, fat, balding man. Why are you showing yourself as a shadow person? He's like, I never got any respect in life. I'm sure as heck going to get it in death. I'm like, no, you're not, because I'm sending you home. You need to go.
Yeah.
Not be here. They can as a ghost, can put into your mind the image of what they want you to see of them as well, because it's all done telepathically.
Is that what's happening with your third eye, maybe with the demons? Is they're controlling that? what they want you to see?
They can control what they want you to see normally, but they can't do it with me because I see through them. I see through angelic eyes, so I see the true image of them.
Very, very interesting. June, tell us about your website, about your books, about what services you offer for folks who might have a demonic attachment or they think they have a demon at play.
My website is demonseer.com, also mysticconnections.org, O-R-G, and I do demonic removals, I do intuitive readings, I do clearings, I do cleansings. My books are available on Amazon.com, and my new ebook is out, Demon Seer: The Awakening, and it'll be out in print next week. Demon Seer: The Awakening. If you're interested in dark stuff, the dark side of the paranormal book, it talks about the demons, their weaknesses, how they work, their fears, because demons do have fears. And it's really insightful, and people buy it in Europe, and I've had so many people come to me saying, this helped me. It made me aware of what was going on and seek help. And a lot of people that come to me, have read my book or listened to a podcast. They're like, I found you by a podcast, or I found you by, your name just popped up out of nowhere, things like that.
June, we appreciate you so much for joining us here at the Oregon Ghost Conference.
Thanks for having me.
June Lundgren, demonseer.com is her website, and we will continue our live broadcast here from Seaside right after this, ladies and gentlemen.
Ghostly history are its old lighthouses. These beacons are used to light the way for ships to see where they're going during a misty day or even a strong storm. Although the state has 11 lighthouses total, folklore, legend, and paranormal activity are connected to 5 of the main watchtowers of the coast. Now known today as a bed and breakfast in Florence. A Head, built in 1894, has the strongest light on the coast, shining more than 24 miles out. But that's not all it has. Legend has it that a smoke-like figure, also known as the Lady in Gray, is lurking about the site. When encountered, however, she dissipates quickly. So next time you check into this bed and breakfast for a night or two, you may not be the only one in your room. Goodwin is Oregon's tallest lighthouse, standing at 93 feet tall, located near Newport, also known as Cape Foulweather. Although a beautiful place, rumor has it, when the keeper Herbert Higgins tried to light the lantern, he collapsed and died before he could complete the process. Herbert now haunts the place, seeking revenge because of his lantern lighting folly on unsuspecting guests to this very day. Another legend, Cape Mears, is spooky not only because of its location near the octopus tree in Tillamook, a mysterious tentacle-like shaped tree, but because of the native tribe that would bury their dead inside that tree. Stranger things have happened around the leading lights. Like the Tillamook Rock, built on jagged ground, darkness consumes the surrounding area. The story is that a phantom ship of lost souls has been seen near the beacon after the ship wrecked into the tower's construction. Lastly, Yaquina Bay started up in 1871 and closed its doors in 1874, was mainly a sea museum and attracted many visitors. This light vessel became part of popular local lore about a teenage girl named Muriel who lost her life while being chased by pirates and was said to be seen wandering the beaches. Unfortunately, it later turned out to be a fictional story written by a local author, but who knows, being it was only open 3 short years. Still, when walking the beaches late at night, keep an eye on those eerie lighthouses, as the light may not be the only thing staring back at you. This is Daniel Brewer.
Into the Paranormal.
I'm Jeremy Scott, live from the Oregon Ghost Conference here in Seaside. We've got Teresa Carroll with us. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Jeremy.
TeresaCarroll.com, her website. She's an internationally known psychic who has visited over 29 countries to study with shamans, healers, and spiritual masters. She does reading and healings for those looking to improve the quality of their lives or develop their spiritual gifts. And she's also an ordained minister of the Universal Life Church. She performs weddings, funerals, other spiritual rites of passage as well. Welcome to the Ghost Conference.
Well, thank you. I've come every year that we've been active, so I guess this is year 10 for me.
Year 10, yes, it is here. It's good to be back here in Seaside after a couple of years off. We were talking with June just a moment ago. I know you heard our conversation about unwanted visitors. We were primarily talking about demons with her, but we can expand that wider here. How do you deal as a psychic with unwanted visitors?
Well, one of the things I have found is that like attracts like. And I work on a vibrational level where I really try to empower people. And mostly the kind of energies that come around me are empowering, are individuals that are on the other side that want to help, to assist. Yes, I have seen my fair share in over 40 years of things that we probably wouldn't want to deal with, but everything out there is part of a natural cycle. And you may not like alligators or vultures or slugs, but they're part of a natural cycle. And so once you understand what they are and how to be appropriate with them, there really isn't a lot of difficulty. It's when we get reactive, or if you're prodding a rattlesnake, you're going to get bit. Or if you're picking up a rat and swinging it around by its tail, you're going to get hurt. It's just a lot of common sense in many ways, and I think people get a little caught in superstition reaction and just don't calm down and look at things objectively.
Or they put everything in the same box because maybe that was an explanation for a previous event. They come back to that as the explanation each and every time.
Yes, and the thing is, only 5% of anything out there is a ghost. There's everything from earth spirits, interdimensional beings, ghosts, fairies, all sorts of stuff out there. A lot of it is relatives, people that have chosen not to move on, suicides. There's all sorts of stuff out there. And like you say, if you just put it all in one box, you really don't get to understand and comprehend. But there's just a lot of diversity of things out there.
You mentioned natural cycle, and tomorrow on the broadcast, we're actually going to be talking a little bit more about whether or not ghosts die off, whether they have a lifespan, whether or not there are certain things that cause them to act up. What's your take? Do ghosts eventually die off? Do they have a lifespan?
My understanding, and I've written a book on this, is that they are fragmented aspects of the mind. In other words, there's a higher conscious mind, a conscious mind, and a subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is more like the memory. It does not think, it does not reason, it doesn't even have an awareness. It just stores information and works from an automatic place. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't get the memo that the individual has died, it fractures and continues to live as if it is alive, and that's what you see. It's like when you turn on a television and the channel comes through, you can change the channel, but that doesn't mean the signal isn't running from the other channels.
Correct, yeah.
And so it's a signal that's still playing out with no receptor, and sensitive people can see it. And how it resolves is eventually something happens that reunite the three levels of consciousness, and it moves on. You can actually do that. You can actually send it to the light, or however you want to ask. Normally, it's very simple. You say, when you see it, you identify it. You say, someone's looking for you. They're calling you. Normally, it looks, and some aspect from another dimension opens up and pulls it through, and it's gone. It's that quick and that easy.
Wow, very interesting. So you understand had an emotional trauma that
Yes.
happened to you, and it was through that process that you discovered you had this gift. Is that right?
Yes, I would not have believed I was psychic before then, but once I had a vision, I was dying of cancer is basically it, and I got angry at God, went through a whole thing where I was going to suicide, and that kind of led to a vision, and in that vision I was offered the opportunity to serve God, which at that point in my life was kind of like, well, I'm a Christian, what's this about? It didn't make sense to me. But I was told if I did this, I would have an extraordinary life. And I have. I've had a life that very few people have ever lived.
Do you mind sharing some of those experiences with us?
Oh, well, I've been buried to my neck in Chile, down in the country of Chile, and worked with shamans who did spiritual work.
As a
with me.
ritual?
As a ritual. It was like I guess you would say a soul searching for 3 days. I was buried alive. I also have been with shamans in Peru and been in Akiva. Linda here was there with me in one of them. I have been to, now it's 30 countries, and met with shamans, hunas, medicine men. I was in Bali, Indonesia, flew to Bora de Bora, and was on one of the largest Buddhist temples in the world, and a bunch of Buddhist monks came up and danced with me around the temple, and then they discovered something about me, which I couldn't speak their language, I couldn't figure it out, but they all gave me very nice gifts and gave me blessings and took me to another temple. I've just had these phenomenal experiences of being welcomed into shamanic communities, into spiritual communities, and just having incredible visions and healing gifts given to me.
You use numerology as well in some of your readings, right?
All the time, yes.
Numerology has always been fascinating to me. There's college basketball going on right now. There was the Super Bowl not too long ago. A lot of people want to know how the numbers add up so they can, I don't know, go throw some money on a craps table or whatever it is. Do you find that numerology actually explains a lot of what's at play?
Well, numerology is almost like a language in itself. It's a vibrational thing. Like you take your name, Jeremy, it starts with a J, and it's the second rung of the alphabet, because we go from 1 to 9, and then we come back, and your letter is the 10th, which would be a 1, because it's 1 plus 0, reducing back to a 1. And so it's a 1 vibration. So you're independent, you're self-contained, you're dynamic, and you're going to find that the E's make you restless, playful, adventurous. Those are your 5s, but it ends in a Y, and Y is a 7. So you will question, analyze, and want to comprehend everything you see. So when you have the vibrations, you can read anything. You can just know a person almost immediately by knowing their name. And so, when you're talking about numbers and how they come up, the patterns seem to tell us what we need to either experience or what we're taking in the moment as far as the experience. The letters of a name or the letters of even a telephone number will give you great insight of how to deal with someone. With you, you're going to have questions. With someone else, it may be, don't give me all that. Get to the point, move on. Get to the point, move on.
All right. When you came up here on stage, you kind of leaned over here, and I thought you were picking hair off my shirt. What did you see when you sat up here on stage with me, Teresa?
Well, I was looking through your auric field at your associate in the background and trying to look to see what was with him, and I saw a woman with him. And as I did, I could see spikes. They looked like one of those sea anemones with all the spikes coming out.
Okay.
And it was golden light, and I haven't seen...
That's a good thing, right?
I haven't seen one of these before. Well,
what?
I have not seen one of these before. As far as being good or bad doesn't make something. I think that's a human qualification. It's like, is a vulture bad or good? It's a personal preference, basically. It's a natural occurrence, and I do feel like somewhere today, maybe in all the energy, you pick something up from someone.
Something good, right? That's what you're telling me, Teresa, right? Or are you telling me it's going to be a long night?
Well, whatever it was, I removed it from you because it wasn't part of your auric field, and I felt like if it stayed there, it could cause you either to feel very hyper or very reactive, and it just didn't feel like a matched energy with yours. So I pulled it off. And
Did you feel that it had any certain characteristics with it?
Yes, it was very spiny, which gave it a sense of almost biting. There was a sarcasm with it when I touched it, as if it was
Sounds about
critical.
right.
And I felt like after a while you might find yourself getting snippy with others, irritable, and I felt like it was out of alignment. I normally would have asked you, but since we're all being very playful here, I took the liberty.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you for that. What are some of the other tools? I think I'm going to thank you for that. I guess I'll check back with you tomorrow. But no, what are some of the other tools that you use? We mentioned numerology, but you've got a lot of other tools, as we're hearing a lot about tools in the tool belt these days.
I feel like my strongest is shamanism, because I have studied with shamans all over the world, and I've learned things that you won't learn in the United States from Peruvian people in Chile, Mexico, England even. I have studied with spiritual healers and such. I love the tarot. The tarot is something that is just an extraordinary, almost like a psychological tool. It gives me insights to what motivates people, why they do what they do, and what it would take for them to transcend bad habits or bad behaviors. I do dreams. I do astral travel. I worked with the military for a while doing remote viewing. I've dabbled with almost everything you can think of, but my favorite seems to be the tarot, numerology, and shamanism.
Do you mind telling us a little bit about that remote viewing work?
Well, I was invited down to a military installation to do some research with the remote viewing. They had this idea that if Air Force officers could be taught to do this, and they were doing it and doing it well, that maybe psychics could do it even better. So they brought in about, I believe there were 15 of us psychics from around the United States were brought in and trained into the remote viewing the way the Air Force does it. And we did the training for a little bit, and we had pretty good success with what we were doing. But then the budget didn't come through, so that was closed up.
So no more remote viewing work. But do you still find yourself doing a little bit of that today, or are you focused more on the other methods?
I do it mostly when there's a lost person. I find that I'm very accurate, but it's not always as helpful as we want it to be. And when I say that, there was a man that disappeared, and I'm from the Tacoma area below Seattle in Washington, and he disappeared from that area. And I said, well, he's in eastern Washington, and I could see the road. I named the road. I described the car. The doors were open. I could actually go into the car. There was water in the back seat. All this stuff was very accurate. And I said, you're going to find him. He's sitting by a small creek with his back against a little tree, and I'm very sorry, but he's passed over. And I said, I see a utility van coming up, parking behind him, wondering why these doors are open, checking things out, and then seeing him by the tree and calling the paramedics. All of that was 100% accurate. That was exactly how it happened. And I visually was there. I touched the man. I could have described him. I was very much aware of him. The only thing is when I'm saying Eastern Washington and I'm saying, this boulevard, because he was from the Tacoma area, there's a lot of places with that name in the eastern areas, so it took them a long time to find him. And the way they found him was when a utility person was going down this road with the name. I don't even remember the name of the road now, but that was the name of the road, and discovered him. So everything was exactly as I viewed it, and I viewed it 3 days prior to it happening.
When you were involved in the shamanic activities, were there any substances that helped kind of enhance the experience? Sometimes we hear those in shamanic circles or whatnot.
Well, ayahuasca is very popular, but honestly, for me, I don't use substance. It's always been that when I do readings, I don't do any sort of alcohol until afterwards. And I've never been a drug user. I've always wanted to do ayahuasca, but every time I get that situation set up so that I might have a spiritual experience like that, something happens and it falls through.
Like it's not meant to be.
Exactly.
And sometimes, you have to listen to those messages, don't you?
Yes. Well, I know that because I get so much information all the time, that it probably would be a little overloading for me. But I still, every once in a while, I think it would be fun to do an ayahuasca.
So are you able to turn this ability on and then turn it off? Or is it 24/7, 365?
It's 24/7, 365, as you say. However, it has become so integrated. It's kind of like you hearing the birds singing, noticing your friends talking in the background, hearing the radio. It's something that I can kind of filter down a little bit and then focus up on if I want. I meet everyone I meet. I see what their auras look like. I know where their heart is, what's going on with them, whether I want to or not. But it's kind of like walking up to somebody and noticing they're wearing black clothing. After a while, it's just what you do, but you don't put a lot of thought or focus into it anymore. Otherwise, I would be overwhelmed.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have to then kind of, I guess, compartmentalize. Is that a accurate way of saying it? File stuff away so you don't get overwhelmed with this ability?
I think it's more a matter of focus, of where I put my focus. When I meet somebody, I ask myself what's important to them and what is it they really need, because my focus in life is empowering people. So if I make it about me, I miss them. So I just kind of cut through and what do they need? And when I get the sense of they need more attention, they need a break, they need whatever, then I kind of steer the conversation and let them hear themselves, so to speak. And often things around them will give me insights to what's really going on with them. But unless they ask me, I have this kind of joke, you have to pay me to mind your business. Unless they ask me, I try not to be intrusive and start, picking things off their...
But I'm guessing in your travels, people know your background and they kind of start opening up and asking you questions.
Always, yes.
And so in that case, you kind of have to address it in the moment, right?
Yeah. I find that I have to be conscientious, because otherwise then it's kind of like when I was younger, I would go out with my girlfriends and I'd spend the whole time working because everybody wanted to make me read and tell and do. And so I wasn't having my own life. I was caught in this constant performance. It wasn't fun. It wasn't enjoyable. So I just kind of sometimes will say, I want to have a drink. I will not read somebody when I'm drinking, and therefore, here's my number. Give me a call, and we'll do this another time. So I've had to learn some healthy boundaries for myself and for others.
Absolutely. Boundaries are what everybody needs in order to make this go round. Teresa, tell us about your website and your books and what you offer and where folks can find more information about you.
My website is my name, www.teresacarroll.com. Teresa doesn't have an H in it, and Carroll is like a woman's first name. What I offer as far as services is helping people help themselves. I guess you would basically say I'm an empowerment coach. I look at people and I know it's going to bring them joy, bring them alive, and make them more authentic. And I help them discover how to bring that into their lives so that they're not caught in the rat race, so to speak. My books, the first 2 books that are out there, All Spooked Up, which is a story about a ghost in my house, and how I have always taught classes on paranormal, spiritual, and psychic development, and how I brought a class in, let them have hands-on experience with the ghost, and then allowed them to go through the process of clearing out that ghost. And that was quite exciting for the class. And that first book is that story. And it has 6 true life investigations in the Puget Sound area in the back of it. And then the second book is an actual how-to paranormal handbook of how to go in and actually clear out an environment, how to make contact with a client, how to set yourself up for safety, how to do an interview, how to do a walkthrough, how to know what's out there, identify it, decide on the cures that you're going to do, write the report, and wrap it up so that you can do a complete comprehensive investigation.
Teresa, I'm afraid that's all the time we have, but thank you so much. TeresaCarroll.com is her website, and we'll be back Sunday at 1 o'clock. From the cold, dark depths of a secret dungeon somewhere deep in the remote Pacific Northwest from the Oregon Ghost Conference, I'm Jeremy Scott. Good night, everyone.
What you believe might not be. Step into the zone of the vast unknown. UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, conspiracies and cover-ups. Into the Parabnormal we go with Jeremy Scott.
Hello, back again at the Oregon Ghost Conference in Seaside. I am Jeremy Scott, somewhere between abnormal and paranormal here in Seaside at the Seaside Civic and Convention Center. This would be day 3 of the 2022 edition and our second day broadcasting here. I'm so honored to have Vivien Powell and William Becker with us. Let's meet a little bit about them. Vivien is a natural medium of over 3 decades who has worked and served spiritualist churches in Greater London. She has studied possession and spirit rescue, trying to obtain proof of the afterlife while helping businesses and individuals with problem spirits. Vivien is founder of RA Paranormal and Supernatural, RAPS, and co-founder of Britain's largest paranormal convention, Paraforce UK. William Becker, who has been with us in the 2019 Oregon Ghost Conference, a paranormal enthusiast, experienced paranormal investigator, and as a psychic and medium, William works with others to integrate their own specific spirituality into their everyday lives through psychic development classes and events, several types of readings as well, mentoring and psychic life coaching. He combines his love of history and psychic abilities to allow people inside the world of ghosts, hauntings, and other paranormal realms, and his work promotes the respectful communication and understanding of the beings and worlds around us. It's good to have both of you here. Welcome to the Oregon Ghost Conference.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
And make sure you get right up close on those microphones so everybody can hear you. And Vivien, you're joining us from literally the other side of the world, is that right?
I am. I've come from London.
And how was your trip?
Interesting.
Interesting.
Alcohol with a stranger on a plane.
For how many hours?
10.
10 hours. And tell us about what you guys did here at the Oregon Ghost Conference. You actually provided a unique experience for folks to, invite spirits to make contact with them, William?
Yes, it was an interesting learning piece for me, too. Vivien brought it over from England, and it's quite common there, but it's new out here. And I'll let her explain more, but the entities come close. We call it a red light event, or they do over there. It's not that kind of red light. It's the
no red light district.
Yeah, it's the red light, a light on the person's face in a darkened room, and you can actually see the entities that are close. They're making, people's faces change and such. You can explain it better than I can, Vivien.
Well, it's basically inviting spirit to come over and overshadow your own face. So they're not actually jumping into you, but they come so close that you then see their features and not your own. But you won't see anything. It's the people in the audience or sitting in front of you that actually witness this
Interesting.
physical phenomena. You can use it within circle meetings, which is like when you're developing in spirit with spirit. Ghost hunting, you can use it anywhere. It's something that we use.
Do you
quite
think
a lot.
most people don't know about it?
Well, I don't know why they don't know about it, because it's just a red lamp that you can put in your case, shine it in the face of someone. Obviously, their eyes are shut, you know. But you can ask spirit that's haunting a room just to come closer and just imprint themselves on the person sitting on the chair. And it can give validation to certain hauntings, you know, like if they say this old lady haunts this particular room and she's seen sitting in a rocking chair,
Yeah.
ask her to come close to you, and she could impress herself so her face shows through one of your investigators' face. And if more of you in the room are seeing the same thing, you know it's not shadows and shadow playing, and hopefully it'll validate that the old lady's is actually still there.
So what is it about red light versus, say, any other color?
We used a whole range of colours, didn't we, William? Do you want to
Yes.
explain?
Well, the red light seems to work the best, but we use blue and green and, I can't remember, purples, lavenders.
So you did experiments with this?
Oh,
Yes, and they all worked, but the red light seemed to show things up better. Now, one thing you don't want to use infrared light. Infrared chases away some types of entities.
Because what? Because ghost hunters have used these devices and we've trained ghosts to be able to look for that signal, or what?
Well, what my understanding is a lot of especially the more positive entities, that wavelength of light is offensive to them. And so they don't like it. It's actually some of the darker entities actually like that kind of a light, is how I've had it explained. Now, when I say darker, I don't mean evil or demons and such. I don't believe in that. But just the range, the frequency range of the different beings that are out there.
Now, this is what, a phenomenon or an experiment from the Victorian ages, is that
yeah,
right?
they've been using it since the early 1800s. You know, they would use their lamps and throw a red cloth over it just to give it that spooky ambient feeling before going into full mediumship and seances.
So this is a little bit different from a seance?
It is different from a seance. We're not doing that sort of thing. We're just using that red light to show spirit, give spirit a chance to come show themselves.
Show like the outline of the spirit?
No, the full face.
The full face.
When I did it with William, we did a run through on Thursday evening, and William said that I grew a full moustache and beard, and it wasn't because I had forgotten to shave or anything like that.
Yeah.
He saw me turn into a man, which is it's great for other people that want to see it that can't.
So you don't believe in demons or these negative entities, so what do you think that was, William?
With the darker side there, I
the,
think
the male figure that she appeared as?
It was just whoever it was. We were in my living room, and my house turns into Grand Central Station for the dead. It's
hopefully you can turn it off at some point.
Oh, I just ignore it. You know, it's great. But no, we didn't do mediumship on it, so there was no communication with the entities that I was seeing. He was just there showing his appearance. And it wasn't anybody I recognized. It wasn't anybody I knew. We had a lot of volunteers hit the stage on Friday night, and every one of them, there were things happening that audience members
that
saw.
Other people witnessed. So they were one of those members of the audience. They saw it happen with the other volunteers, and then they came up as a volunteer themselves, and vice versa. Those people went back to the audience, and they saw.
Exactly.
Did this freak some people out?
I don't think so. We warned them and talked about it beforehand.
But
a lot of them felt things when they were up here. They could feel, if we saw their lips moving, they could feel something, even though their lips hadn't moved, or their eyes. They hadn't physically moved, but it would look like the entity was moving their lips. Or the volunteer would have their eyes closed, but the entity would be looking around. And so people could often see the shine of eyes on closed eyelids.
Mm-hmm.
it's fascinating.
Maybe the shock factor in the sense that, they knew kind of what they were in for, but maybe had some skepticism or some reluctance in knowing that it would actually happen.
Right, and a lot of people were really quite surprised with that. I don't know. Nobody got up running out of the room in terror, which is good.
Yeah.
That's not what this is about. But we did have a lot of people that were very pleasantly surprised, I think, with all of this. And we ended with Ankasha Amenti as the last of our...
Interesting. Now, she's a psychic, right?
She's a psychic medium, one of the best.
So
She's
when you do this
fantastic.
on psychics, does that add another element to this?
Yes. She was able to allow even more to come closer, and more pieces of her, I think, also came through, as well as the entities themselves. And then she can actually work with it a little bit to help pull entities close, invite more in. And
basically, she was able to show us a little bit of her friends. Let's call them her friends. So it wasn't inviting whatever was in the room at the time. She actually allowed her friends to be seen, which was an absolute honor.
So it enhances the experience.
Oh,
And
yes.
for the audience, it really kind of showed them how this can work when you involve a psychic medium.
Yes. And the more relaxed you are in the chair with the red light on you, the more they come through and come to you.
Yeah.
That was something I experienced when we were rehearsing.
Now, did the volunteers have to be any sort of certain mindset or prepare themselves in any way?
We had men and women. I just sat them in the chair and just asked them to shut your eyes, think of your shopping list tomorrow, or have a little sleep. It's fine.
Relax.
Just chillax in the chair. And I put a black sheet around them just to stop any reflection from clothing, T-shirts, jewellery, that sort of thing. And I think, to be honest, I think they felt a little bit bored sitting in that chair because they were missing out on what everybody else was seeing, but they could hear it for themselves.
Yeah.
They can hear what the audience is saying, what they're seeing, and I think they secretly enjoyed it. Being centre of attention, and why not? Because boy, it was amazing.
I'm wondering if people vocalized the visions that they were getting. Because if you're in the audience, how do you know what somebody else is seeing? Were these people then reporting this back to you? Or
Yes, I was in the audience with a microphone, and people, I'd hold the mic up and let people talk about what they were saying. And many people would see the same kinds of things, and then the changes and such too. And several of the people in the audience were friends of mine personally. I know they weren't susceptible to seeing something simply because somebody else said so.
Yeah, taking your word for it.
Yeah. And some of them came up on the chairs. Actually, it was kind of fun. One of my friends I hadn't seen for probably 40 years was here, and it was great. And she was up on the chair, and it was fun.
Did you have more male or female spirits manifest?
Mostly male, didn't we?
Yeah.
Why?
I must say, being from England, and it was an honour to see it. I was sitting from the side, helping them to relax and stay calm. But I had to get up off my chair and walk around and see him face on. And what I saw was the face of Guy Fawkes. And I'm thinking, if you've come from England to show me yourself, I'm honoured. And I've seen his photograph. Well, he's not his photograph, but he's...
Everybody's seen the Guy Fawkes mask.
Yeah, but his image on paintings and historical facts and things like that.
Yeah.
But to actually see that face on this gentleman, for me personally, was exciting and a great honour. And I don't think anybody else realised how exciting that really was. But yeah.
So go back to what you just said, William. Why mostly men, do you think?
I'm not sure. I really am not sure.
That's fine.
And because the women, on both, the women and the men, there were a couple women that came through.
Yeah, there was a few. That West African, I'm saying it wrong.
Right.
But she was beautiful. Whoever she was that wanted to show herself was absolutely amazing. You imagine these scary looking faces, but the lady that did come and show herself was absolutely stunningly beautiful. So it can be a treat as well as, ooh, what's that?
So I wonder if anything more than the face materialized. Were you able to, see what kind of clothing they were wearing to get an indication of what time period?
It was just the face.
Just the
Right.
face.
Now, there were cases where you could see where there was a band here, because the color, you'd have a band of either a different color or lighter. Sometimes it was darker, like you could see material, but often it was like a place where the sun hadn't shone as much. You know, you get suntan lines around your sunglasses or something. And so some kind of a headband, something like that, probably.
Very interesting. Were there any things that shocked you? Because you both have done this before, but was there anything that stood out in what you did here at the Oregon Ghost Conference?
I think for me, because I hadn't had a lot of experience with it, and to be honest, I was a little bit concerned, is this going to work? How does this work exactly?
Yeah.
Because we experimented in my living room, and that was my one experience. I was very pleasantly surprised at how every single person up here had entities come over. And it seemed like we had the same person often show up on different people, because you could see a lot of the same structure. And how many members of the audience really did see things? I think pretty much everybody did. Yeah. Not everybody put their hands up, but pretty much everybody indicated they were seeing things. The feedback has been fantastic.
Does this prove to you or give you further evidence that ghosts are always around us?
I think so.
I hope so. I'm a spiritualist medium, so I will always say yes. So I treat
Spiritualist medium, does that mean there's a little bit of religion involved?
I was a Christian spiritualist medium, and I still, to a degree, still follow that movement. But
is that met with a little bit of mixed opinions, matching or mixing the two?
The thing is, like, I don't conform to anything. So even with my Christian spirituality, sometimes if I'm told this and I don't really agree with it, it's like, yeah, okay, I'll leave that one with you.
Yeah.
I'm not taking that, So I see so much, and William too, he's the same as me. We see so much just walking past and living our normal daily life. Trying to prove to somebody else that this is real, spirits do exist, they're all around us at any given time. That's a bit harder to prove. So hopefully bringing the red light here shows people that, hey, it does exist. Have a look for yourself. You don't have to be a medium to do that. Let's put this light on. Let's see let's see what happens. And I'm hoping people can take from that.
I want to try something new here. You guys up to trying something new here?
Absolutely.
You said earlier you don't believe in negative entities.
I said I don't believe in evil.
In evil entities.
Right.
Is there a difference, though?
I think so. Negative can be an energy form that isn't... to me, evil is deliberate malice, no good at all.
Up to no good.
Yeah, a demon, a devil, something like that. And I don't believe in these things because I have never experienced one. And most of the really credible people I know haven't either. And I'm highly skeptical. I believe what I see. And I know these things exist because I've seen them physically as well as psychically.
Vivien, try to convince William.
Evil does exist. And when I say evil exists, it's that little devil that lives in each and every one of us. The devil exists inside us. We are the evil ones, man. Okay? Some of our evil is more evil than others. For example, John Wayne Gacy and the likes of those. But evil, it does exist, and it lives in us. And when people talk about heaven and hell, they believe that hell is a deep, dark pit of fire that you're going to go to and burn. For me, hell is where we are now. When we move on, we go to that heaven, to that other dimension, and that will be our heaven. So for me and William, evil does exist, but it exists in man, and the demon is within us.
Right. And I definitely agree with that. For me, so many people think that you have this independent being that's pure evil, nothing else. And that's what I'm referring to, does not exist. Yes, there are nasty things in the world. But even, I'm nominally Catholic. The teachings of the church are such that even Hitler could have a spark of redemption. And, you know, the whole idea of hell isn't really followed much anymore, but also could be empty because everybody also has good. And so there's a bit of both, and trying to find the balance. You can look at it as the light and shadow in each of us. And the shadow has a purpose sometimes. And the light has a purpose. And working to balance what that is for each individual. We're all different. We all have our own unique reason for existing at this particular time on this planet. And we're not supposed to be somebody else's, but we're supposed to find that balance and that meaning and that purpose for each individual.
Well, thank you both for demonstrating my point, which is that we can sometimes agree to disagree, but everybody has a different vantage point and a different theory. And if we all had the same theory, it would be a boring conversation.
Exactly.
So I want to thank you both for coming on the program and for giving us some insight on this. I think it's absolutely fascinating what you guys did and the results. And if you do it again next year, I will make sure that I'm here to experience it myself.
I think buy yourself a lamp. Try it at home. It's something that everybody
So what do we
can
have to do? Somebody's listening right now. They want to try this. What do they do?
Get a lamp, just a normal lamp, you know, like a desk lamp, something like that, or you can buy one off of eBay. Put in a red light bulb. Shine it into somebody's face. Obviously, get them to shut their eyes so they're not going to be blinded by a red light bulb. Turn the lights off in the dark and get somebody just to sit and watch the face of the person in front of the lamp. That's it.
That's it.
Have fun with it.
And if folks have results, would you be interested in hearing about that?
Oh, definitely.
How do they contact you both?
My email is william@paranormalinsights.net. You can also, paranormalinsights.net is my Facebook or my website, and you can link to my Facebook, my Twitter or Instagram stuff.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. And you can also sign up for my newsletter
Or
there.
you can get me, my email address is simple, spookyviv@hotmail.com.
I love it. Tell us, in the minute we have left, the most extreme case of spirit rescue you've been involved in.
It went on for 3.5 years, and we didn't manage to remove it, and the lady sadly passed away.
I'm sorry.
So, yeah, it's very real. It does happen.
From
England.
the Klingon, from the attachment, you believe, or that had some contributing factor in her demise?
It did take her. It took her. Her husband is still around. He's still having the hauntings. There's not much further that we can do. But it is real. It is out there. Very rare, but it does happen.
Thank you both so much for coming on here at the Oregon Ghost Conference. That's Vivien Powell and William Becker. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll continue from the Oregon Ghost Conference in Seaside right after this. Back live from Seaside at the Oregon Ghost Conference 2022. I'm Jeremy Scott, and we have Marge Harding and Rocky Smith with us next. Marge has looked after the historic Irma Tinger House, which is located in Oregon City and has paranormal activity. Rocky was born and raised in Oregon City and teaches art at Oregon City High School and has worked at the Irma Tinger House in his teens for about 3 years, where he had many paranormal experiences and has continued to have those experiences over the past 20 years, including his first experience And Rocky has worked to preserve the historic home, which has undergone a complete restoration and is open to the public. He started researching the paranormal activity in Oregon City in 1995 and has documented close to 100 haunted places within. In 2006, he combined his love for history and knowledge of the paranormal, founding Northwest Ghost Tours, and is the owner of Haunted Oregon City Books, Tours, and Gifts. And this event is his baby. He's the director of the Oregon Ghost Conference. He's here. He's now. He is Rocky Smith. Hi, Rocky. How are you?
I'm tired, but I'm doing good.
Well, tired's okay.
Yes.
You worked your butt off, put on another great event. So tell us how you would sum up the event so far, the 2022 Oregon Ghost Conference. 10 years. This is what, fourth year in Seaside? Or
Well,
fifth year?
We
or?
started in Seaside, back in Seaside in 2016.
So fifth year.
Yeah. But, it hasn't been normal years. And I would say that, this is probably the best ghost conference yet. There was some, little stumbles and things like that, and you expect that with a 2-year break.
Yeah.
To get back. When you're doing things year after year after year, it becomes routine. And so I feel good about the event, but it's been a lot of work, and I think people are pleased with it and have no idea in terms of financially how the event did, but we're on Sunday, and we made it through it most of the day, most of the weekend.
Absolutely. So give us the plans for next year, if you don't mind.
The rule is don't talk about next year until this year's done. But we do have the dates for next year to 2023. So March 24th through 26th is the dates for the Oregon Ghost Conference. And we've learned some things this year. I've met a lot of people this week. I spent the whole spring break here in Seaside doing ghost tours.
Yeah.
And in order to get to know a community and its history, you have to spend time there and get to know people, talk to them. So I got a lot of stories this week, a lot of stories to add to the tours that I do here. But I got to explore some buildings. I met the new owner of the Masonic Lodge here in Seaside and toured that building last couple days. So constantly looking for new history and stories to talk about and new partners to work with the Ghost Conference.
As an introduction to our conversation about the Ermatinger House, I'd like you to give us some historical background on that property.
Well, the Ermatinger House is an important place to me and to Marge, and I have worked in the house. I worked in the house when I was in high school. I still am part of the Friends group of the Ermatinger House. And the house was built around 1843, and it was built as a Hudson Bay Company house for Francis Ermatinger. And Francis was basically operating the Hudson Bay Company store. The house was built by Dr. McLaughlin, and it's got a lot of history, but Ermatinger was there only a short time. And then the house actually moved up the hill in the early 1900s, and then it moved again in the 1980s. So the house is currently near the Oregon City Library, where it's been since the 80s after those moves, and has an incredible history. It predates the McLaughlin House. It's the oldest house in the city, and we believe it has connections to the coin toss that named the city of Portland. There were 3 houses in downtown Oregon City very much near each other. Ermatinger House, Francis Pettygrove, and Asa Lovejoy all lived in downtown Oregon City, and they were all good friends. And so that coin toss to name the city of Portland is connected to that block in downtown Oregon City. But since we don't know 100% for sure the coin toss took place at the Ermatinger House, and the other 2 houses are gone, the story lives with the Ermatinger House.
And Marge, when was the first time that you heard of the Ermatinger House, and when did you step into the property first?
I had been teaching up until this time and then retired from that, but had been asked and invited to come to the Ermatinger House.
And, we all pronounce it over the years differently.
And to do some, what do you call it? I think you call it living history. And so my husband, Rolla, and I stopped by the house and looked in the windows and said, oh, this is really cool. And so we decided that we would connect with it since we had been invited. And it became such a part of our lives. It was, during that particular time, it was not feasible to even not be involved with it. One of the things that occurred during this particular time was, of course, some of the interesting history that came along with it, some coin tosses, some ribbon tosses, some comments from a certain young man who was part of the house at the time, a Rocky, and it just really fit. One of the things that my husband and I did was, first we got some clothes and started doing some living history in and around, but always stuck with the house. And then I decided, I've been asked if I could do some teas. I was a home economics teacher, so I figured that that would be a fun thing to do. So I started working on teas. My husband was a history teacher. As I said, I was a home economics teacher. And my husband worked in the kitchen, and I worked in the rest of the house telling the story of the house. But this one time, I'll never forget, this young man, again, his name, it was Rocker, Still, or something. And so we started doing some living history teas. I always set the table, but I always had somebody to feed at the table. This particular day, believe it was a Saturday, no one came. I had set the table, no one came. So I just left the chairs where they were. Well, I came back downstairs after I'd checked things up there, and the chair was in my way, out in the aisle. And so I pushed it back in, went on to do some other things, and came back out, and there was this dumb chair that just wouldn't stay, and I guess it was floating around or something. Anyway, Rocky had already gone home, and I was going out the back door, locked it, and everything was just fine until the next day I got a phone call that the chair was, it was strange. It was just doing strange things. And when Rocky came, he looked at the chair and, oh, yeah, it was fine. And he went out on the porch and came back in, and the chair was in the aisleway. Well, then he said, what's the deal with the chair? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, it keeps moving. I said, oh, yeah, it's done that all the time. It just moves around, just kind of rocks and rolls around. And so it just, and Rocky, what does he do? He screams and runs out the front door.
Is that your recollection, Rocky?
No, that's not my recollection at all.
Well, maybe, a little.
Well, we were talking about this earlier. Everyone's perceptions of things as it's happening live is different. And then to relive it, 20 years later,
it's
and
different.
What really do we remember, and is it accurate? The story that I tell on the tour is a little different. We had an event that day, and we had the table set, and it was normally a place that people would come and sit and enjoy the teas. And my memory was that that Marge actually went out the back door after the tea, and I locked up the house. And when I locked up the house and came back in, the chair was pulled out. And I had not talked to Marge at all about the chair that day. And so I, in my memory, called Marge right after that and said, you will not believe what happened with the chair. And she said, oh, no, I actually said, you won't believe what happened when you left the house. And she said, does it have anything to do with the chair in the dining room? And I said, yes. And then we realized that, the chair had been going in and out during the day. We'd both noticed it, but I think each one of us thought maybe that the other person had been moving it. And that was my first real experience. And because I'm such a visual person, when I saw the chair had moved, I had to process that. And I do remember running out of the house. I don't remember screaming.
Well,
I don't remember
maybe,
saying,
you
"Oh
know.
no," but that's, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. You might be right. It bothered me. It really bothered me because it was more like I needed a break from the house to process it. And the truth is, at that time, it scared me. I would say it scared me at the time, but then later on I said, it doesn't scare me. When I realized that the chair was moved not to scare us, it was moved to say, we're here. I'm here. And I think Marge agrees with this, I want my story told. And this was not something to scare us. It was saying, we're here. We're here, and continue to tell this story. And we've done that ever since, and it's been a real emotional experience for me this weekend, just in terms of the work and the investment in time and energy. But to have Marge and her husband Rolla here on the 10-year anniversary to talk about this house, which is really the story of how the Oregon Ghost Conference came to be. The Ermitanger House, and my experiences there, started my interest in the paranormal, started me in doing tours in the neighborhood because the house was in such disrepair that the house was closed. And my promise to the house was to tell their story. And now we couldn't get in the house. And Marge's promise has always been to tell the story. And she couldn't get into the house. And that really affected me emotionally. And so I started doing tours in the neighborhood because I said, I can still tell the story from standing outside the house. And then it's like, what other stories in this neighborhood need to be told? And that expanded. And then I started meeting more people that would share their stories. And then that led to the Ghost Conference because it was a place that people could meet together and tell stories and share it. And then it got too big. And we moved it here to Seaside, and here it's been 10 years. And to come full circle, I don't think Marge has ever attended Oregon Ghost Conference before. And I don't know that you had.
No, been primarily still caught in school.
Yeah.
At this time.
So on the 10-year anniversary, I really kind of wanted her to be here, but I didn't want to ask her to do that because I knew the work involved in loading up stuff and driving to the coast and doing all this. And I told her about the Ghost Conference, and her and Rolla said, well, could we be a part of that, or do you need help with that? And I didn't know what to say and I don't know what to say right now, but I thanked her earlier this week, but it meant a lot to me that they were here. And then actually walking in and seeing the display that you saw today, I actually brought tears to my eyes because it was objects that I remember from high school that she brought into the house.
Was this the first time you've ever done an interview together?
Yes.
I think so.
It's the first time we've ever talked to anybody about these experiences together.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm honored that you're doing so here. Did something happen in the dining room or with that chair in the past? Do you know?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
As far as I know, and I was in the house for about 20 years, no, nothing had happened. However, other things were happening in the area. I remember one time I was upstairs putting curtains up in the windows, and my husband was downstairs putting up curtain rods. And I yelled down to him, "What, honey? What was it that you want?" And he said, "What?" "Well, you called me." "No, I didn't call you." "Yes, you did. I heard you." And there was a lady that was helping me, and I said to her, he called me, didn't he? And she said, "No, I didn't hear anything. However, I think you're hearing things because they like you." That's what I was told, is that they will call your name if they like you, and they definitely like you.
And the other thing about the chair is, what do we know about the chair and what's the significance of that? We always said that the person sitting at the head of the table was the captain. The captain.
The captain.
And we believed that because we've always been told there was a steamboat captain that lived in that house at one time. And so we've always talked about that. But that story's passed down folklore kind of for years.
Yeah.
And we never knew for sure that a captain lived in the house. It was just a story that passed down. And so as a captain hosting people at your house, you would sit at the head of the table. And you would greet people. And so this story was, anytime the table was set for company, like we expected that day, that he would be there to host the house. And so the story had always been, this captain invites people and hosts these things at his gatherings at his house. Well, what's so amazing is just 2 years ago, I found a newspaper article about the sale of the Ermatinger house because it was on the Elks property in Oregon City, the Elks Lodge. When the Elks bought that property, the Ermatinger house was in the newspaper for sale. And it talked about the former owners and Captain James Graham. And in the newspaper articles that I looked up for Captain James Graham, it talked about him hosting parties at his house that all go back to this story.
Was that the first time you'd seen something with that name printed? Or
It's the first time it's the first time just a couple years that I confirmed there was a captain that lived in the house, that we knew of a name, we never had heard a name. And this, to find a newspaper article that said he would host gatherings at his house, I was like, oh my gosh, this is true. And this captain is a real person. And I still, to come full circle 10 years later, that's sometimes how long it takes to put these stories to rest in terms of completion and understanding of it.
Marge, did you have encounters with the captain?
Oh, I had, when I stop and think about it, I had quite a few. And not only with the captain, there was a little girl that it felt like and seemed like the captain and this little girl knew each other. And she was always taking pieces of ribbon that were around her neck. And we didn't know where those pieces went until we started taking furniture out of the house when we had to leave it. What am I trying to say? The ribbon that was around her neck was cut in little tiny pieces and were shredded and stuffed in the back of the dresser drawers. And we looked at each other and said, what in the world? This is the ribbon that I've been looking for that I had put around the doll's neck, and now it's in little tiny shredded pieces in the back of the dresser drawer. Oh my goodness. And things like that just kind of seemed to keep happening, and we pretty soon accepted it, and we started talking with them. We would just talk and chat and how are you doing today? What you doing? What's looking good? What would you like to eat? And just talking, visiting with her, and by gum, pretty soon they'd start coming up with food and crumbs and other things that were very, very telling as far as this little girl, April, because April, we had to give her a name sometime, and it was the month of April. And so my husband said, I think that is the right name, and all of us agreed, and we had April.
And the first ghost conference in Oregon City was always held in April.
Interesting. Yeah. And now it's spring break week.
Yep, spring break.
Did you ever have one of these spirits or entities call your name in the house, Rocky?
No,
I guess they didn't like you.
Oh, no, I think they do. I never did at the house. I've had that happen in other places in Oregon City. But I do believe there's a connection there. They know when we're there. The little girl does follow me occasionally, but there is this real personal connection to the house, and there always will be as long as I live. And I think Marge and Rolla feel the same.
We certainly do.
Historic research is something that fascinates you, and even take out the ghosts and just the history of a place. Nonetheless, you spoke about this here at the Oregon Ghost Conference.
Yeah.
How if somebody's interested, how do they get involved? And it's important to also know about the history that it can influence things happening today.
Well, I talked about it in my class today is there's so many aspects you can go and research, but if you're researching a specific haunted place or building, for instance, or a piece of property, start big picture, and then start narrowing in. Don't start researching the history of a house unless you understand the community, understand how the town got there. because those houses don't exist without that. So just focusing on, like, the Ermatinger house, for instance, is not enough. The Ermatinger house was built there because the Hudson Bay Company was there. So without understanding the native history and the broad history of the Hudson Bay Company and the end of the Oregon Trail, you don't have a context for that particular building. So kind of starting bigger with what city or region that you're going to narrow that down, then start looking for signs. There's signs on the houses. There are names that you know that you can start researching in newspapers, or going to the county and looking for building records, or the city. There's so many inventories and research options that you can go, and it's becoming so much easier these days because Oregon City, for instance, before Portland even existed, had 5 newspapers. Now a lot of those newspapers that you used to do in the library for hours at a time, microfiche, is now digital, and you can go and search 1890s newspapers and get these stories that no one has ever told because no one ever spent the time to look for them, and now they're there, and you're finding records of burial sites and things in the newspaper that I'm still every year finding in Oregon City that are bringing a full picture to the whole story.
Thank you both so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure having you both here, learning a little bit about the history of Oregon City and the Ermatinger House. Thank you so much. That's Rocky Smith and Marge Harding, and we'll be back here from the Oregon Ghost Conference in Seaside right after this.
What you believe might not be. Step into the zone of the best unknown. UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, conspiracies and cover-ups. Into the Parabnormal we go.
Watch your step. Hide under your blankets. Whatever you do, prepare yourself for what's coming through your speakers. Into the Parabnormal.
I'm Jeremy Scott. We're back live at the Seaside Civic and Convention Center for the Oregon Ghost Conference 2022. Ellen MacFarlane, Devin, Sisk joining us next here on the program. These two bonded over their love for the paranormal and personal experiences with foreign entities, and now they've taken it upon themselves to share this love of theirs with the public. In 2014, they launched Napa City Ghosts and Legends Walking Tours. Ellen is native to the area, having lived in Napa for over 30 years, and knew by the age of 11 that she wanted to work with ghosts. She likes writing, ghosts, and travel. Devin, a paranormal investigator, creator of the Benicia Ghost Walk, has been in the paranormal field for over 11 years. He's logged over 650 cases. It's good to have you both here from Southern California up here into Oregon. How, are you guys enjoying your stay?
Very much so.
We've been very busy. Very, very busy. Great people up here, though.
Yes, definitely.
Great vibe. The whole conference has been amazing. Rocky, everybody has been absolutely wonderful. By the way, your theme song in the beginning of your show, as it was playing, I shot an entire video with Vegas dancing girls. Okay, I thought it was amazing. I was like, oh, we got to do this. We got to collaborate right now. Okay.
Devin actually told me before we went on the air here that he's got an amateur rapping career. So
yeah, it's very amateur. I go by Fat Skinny. That's my rap name. I have a fat gold chain, but it's skinny in the middle. You
got a skinny wallet.
Ghosts don't all have to be serious, though, do they?
No, you know what? We talk about this constantly because, we do classes and we do a lot of paranormal stuff involving new people and investigating. And, like Ellen always says, she goes, if you went into the same building where other people are gone and investigated and asked the same damn question over and over, how did you die? When did you die? What happened when you, it's like,
please manifest.
Is that how they talk?
All ghosts talk like this.
Oh, okay.
Except for the females, because then they're a bit sassy.
Oh, okay.
But
you would know.
We think adding a little bit of comedy kind of raises vibration. Okay, the energy gets amped up. Second of all, the ghosts like it. I mean, we've noticed some of our best EVP work is when we're screwing around and having a good time.
I mean, ghosts like to have fun too, right? So if, maybe they're a little bit, adventurous, maybe a little mischievous, rambunctious, so you might be onto something if you behave the same way. You might attract.
Cyndi Lauper did write that song, Ghouls Just Want to Have
Right.
Fun. All right, thank you. I'll see my way out. Thank you. I'll be here for 2 nights only. Thank you.
They tend to join in to, like if we're having a personal conversation, we're talking, we're laughing, they tend to jump in and add their opinions to it, and that kind of thing. Because, they're still people,
Ghosts are people too.
I wouldn't want to sit around and be morbid my whole death, I guess, Why be morbid about it?
Unless you're emo, then it's okay.
or really goth.
Really goth or emo, okay to be morbid.
So, Ellen, how did you fall in love with ghosts?
Well, I didn't actually. I was terrified. As a child, I would see people standing around my bed at night, and I didn't know who they were. And I would put the covers over my head, and I would hear them talking. And as I got older, I started to understand that the people weren't alive, and it was spirit activity. And my parents weren't great at, supporting that. However, it does run in my dad's side of the family, and all of the cousins back in Ireland have the same kind of abilities as I do. So it's really a family trait. And I got started, my mom died when I was 10, suddenly, and I spent my childhood trying to find her on the other side. That's how I got started in my work.
What was your first experience?
Well, one of the ones I distinctly remember was after my mom had died. My dad took me to therapy, and the therapist was in this old Victorian Queen Anne house, and the upstairs ballroom was her office, and a nanny had hung herself in that room. And so the doctor is saying to me, I hear you see ghosts, and I'm seeing the nanny hanging behind her. And they're thinking, you're nuts. She's nuts. They're going to put her away. So I would just say, I don't see anything. I don't know what you're talking about. But that's what I remember most from then on. And then I just kind of shut down until I got a little bit older. And then especially when I had my boys, that's when it kind of came back in full force.
What about for you, Devin? How did you get involved in this?
Well, I always had an interest, but that interest was very minor compared to what it is now. I'd read a book, watch a show, and then, okay, cool, move on. But 20 years ago, I had a near-death experience. And I actually climbed out of my body. I got out of my body, walked around the ER room, watched my wife lose it, walked all the way back around through the ER room to where they were working on someone. I didn't realize it was me just yet. Watched this little blonde nurse jump up on the side of the bed and start doing chest compressions on somebody. And in my weird observation kind of way, I was like, oh my God, that guy's screwed. not making a joke, but just my weird observation, right? The doctor's part, and I see it's me. Okay, so then I go through the tunnel backwards. It looked like an old tube TV set being turned off. It sat there and just went down like this, and next thing I know, I was on the other side. I'm sitting on this crushed red velvet couch. Had me worried for just a second there. Crushed red velvet couch, looked like it came out of some rock and roll club, out of New Orleans, and had cigarette burns in it. It was a badass couch, okay? I was like, this thing is badass. So, and then there's all those weeping willows, and I was surrounded by the most intense feeling of love that I've ever felt. I had the overwhelming feeling of coming home, and I wasn't in pain anymore. Then I had 3 people come up behind the couch, and they started sharing stories about my life. But every time they'd share a story, they would start off with, "We were with you when this happened," okay? So by the 3rd story, I'm like, okay, I get it. You're my spirit guides, my guardian angels, whatever people believe in. There's a little gap there where the rest of the story is mine. But at the end of it, they're like, well, you've been given a great gift, and you could continue on with the work or continue on with the journey. The first thing I thought about was my son. My son was he was 2 at the time, and my wife and I were going through the steps of figuring out that he had cerebral palsy, and not cerebral palsy to the point where he is in a wheelchair constantly, but we were figuring out that his large motor skills weren't going to be up to snuff, and his little motor skills were not going to be up to snuff, and my first thought was like, my kid's going to need me. I don't want to be part of that bad story of like, I have cerebral palsy and my dad died when I was 2. So I was sent back. Meanwhile, back on Earth, 17 minutes had passed. Okay, so they had taken my body from the ER stall, pushed me in the goodbye room, and my wife was in there. She was calling everybody, "Devin's dead, Devin's dead." And I did the responsible thing. I sat up, took a deep breath, scared the holy hell out of her. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Thank God Walking Dead wasn't on yet. Okay, because she would have been the first one to put like 2 in my brain pan. She would have been like,
for the head. Yeah, you always got to go for the head.
It's like relationship goals. He came back as a walker, So after that, I had this fascination of, why was I able to walk around the ER room? Why was I given a choice to come back? And I believe those moments in the ER room, that's what it feels like to be a ghost. And I was terrified. I was absolutely confused and terrified, and that's what we run into a lot.
That's the main reason why we study this, because of those moments of him being a ghost. Imagine what that would be like for eternity, and having no one and not knowing or understanding. And of course, we know that there's different levels. Some ghosts can see each other, some ghosts can't, and just different dimensions and things like that.
So was this all meant to be, Devin?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, this journey has taken me places I would have never imagined going and doing, things I would have never imagined doing. It's just the people that we've helped, because one of the things that drew us together was the fact that we both wanted to figure out how to help spirits get over to the other side. I think there's a big difference between a ghost and a spirit. Spirit can come and go. They crossed over the other side, they can come back and visit. Our family visits us all the time. If you look anywhere in the world, everybody believes in some kind of ancestral worship, except here in America, okay? There's a reason for that, The rest of the world has it right. You hang on to your ancestors. You honor your ancestors. You keep your ancestors close. What was I saying? I totally forgot what I was saying. Sorry.
He means that, we don't always do that. We don't honor that. And when a ghost is a spirit who has been stuck here, has been completely stuck here, and, or not a spirit. I would say a ghost is just a person that's stuck here, compared to a spirit which has crossed over back and forth.
I want you to both tell us about some of the history on the ghost tours that you lead folks on.
Okay. So,
Do you want the history or crazy stories?
right?
From the
We
ghost
have
tours?
both. Because
Okay,
it's not all
craziest-
paranormal.
Craziest story on the ghost walks.
Well, first I'll say we got started with the ghost walk because I met Devin at a Paracon at Preston Castle at Ione, California. And I wanted to work on his turf. So Benicia was where he was doing the tour, and we didn't know each other. And I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, I hear you run this tour. I would really like to work on your area." And it's just a courtesy. It's a courtesy when you come into someone's area to ask them permission first. And so he decided to let me do that, and that's how we became friends. And we decided to build the Napa tour and the Sonoma tour because I had 3 children in 2 years, which was an amazing feat. I'm the mom of multiples. I can do anything.
Apparently.
Right? So I needed
I
a
took
night
time
job.
on mine. I got 2 baby mamas and 2 children, 10 years
Right.
apart. So
I needed a night job, and I knew nobody was going to hire me. So I decided I'm going to take this and write a tour and build it from nothing. So literally nothing, and just stories, and then in research, lots and lots and lots and lots of research and fact and investigation and all of that, put it together, and we've been going for 8 years. We've been through a pandemic, a fire, personal tragedy, earthquake, and so much more.
pandemic.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, it's the history is good. I have a picture here of not the greatest picture. We have a picture of myself and my son Duncan on the Sonoma tour. The picture of Duncan, he's wearing a face mask because it was still COVID. It was during the summer. But if you look at him, his face has become a skull.
Go ahead and take the pan it to the left or to the right. I don't
Okay.
remember. You'll see it. I played with the contouring and lighting and blew the face up.
That one?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you'll see that his face has become a skull. There's no explanation for that. We're standing on what is a Native American burial ground of over 1,200 Native Americans buried in this one area behind the Sonoma Mission. It is a very historic property in California. The mission system was very barbaric to Native Americans. They were treated like they were slaves or indentured servants. And my son has my ability, so he also felt these things. So I think that was one of the craziest stories. And that picture was taken by a guest.
Yeah, that one's a little bit clearer. You might want to check that one.
Yeah, we showed that one as well. It almost looks like a skeleton.
It does. And he was wearing a black face mask, but there's no reason why that would happen.
Yeah, he had the little COVID mask over his mouth.
Yeah. And it was black.
Kind of weird, right? I call him Ghost Rider now.
Yes.
'Cause, you know.
He's 12 now, so yeah. But he's kind of freaked out about that tour. But he does come out. My twins, my 2 boys, are very understanding. We have a child on that tour that's in a ghost, and they come out and bring him Matchbox cars and play cars with him. And our tours are different. They're interactive. We'll bring the tools out, and you get to use them. We teach you how to use them and how to protect yourself. So not just telling stories, you're actually doing an investigation as well.
So it's a combination of both.
Yes.
Yeah, the concept was to create a safe environment for people to take their first step into learning the paranormal, learning how to do it, and what we conceive as a step, or a safe step, into how to ghost hunt, basically.
Absolutely. So what was the craziest thing that's happened on these
I'll
ghost
let him
walks?
tell. It's a funny one, but it's not quite paranormal.
Which one? Oh, my.
Or the bicycle guy.
Okay, so
bicycle kick guy.
in Napa, we have a lot of colorful characters. And
Well, we do in Portland, too.
The living. Yes, the living.
Hopefully you didn't go through on your way here.
We actually did.
We did. So we're doing the tour, and Ellen's husband, Donnie, was on the tour that night with a friend of his. And Donnie's very linear. He's a tech guy. And I always joke that he's like Data from Star Trek. Okay,
He truly is Data.
I know. I don't mean that in a bad way. Sorry, Don. But it's just the way he is. And we were talking about how crazy the tours get one night, And he looks at me and Ellen and he goes, you guys are just over the top dramatic. He goes, there's no way any of this crazy stuff happens.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're like, So we're finishing up the tour at the Opera House, and all of a sudden we hear this ungodly screeching sound. Okay? First it was screaming like a pterodactyl.
Can you recreate it for us?
Oh, you ready?
Yep.
Better stand back a little bit.
Check two. All the psychics over there just went, I think a spirit
Something is
guy's
in the
coming
force, a
through.
disturbance. Yeah.
I feel the spirit of a pterodactyl. So, he was screeching like that, but he was riding a bike.
And I'm trying to do the tour. I'm talking.
Screaming pterodactyl riding a bike. Okay, I follow.
Probably on meth. So,
the bike didn't have any tires.
yeah, there was no rubber. It was just rim. So here's this guy spun out of his head, screeching like a pterodactyl. Sparks are shooting everywhere. And the whole thing's like, and he's screeching louder than the metal. So I think that should be an album right there, screeching louder than metal.
Yeah, he ran right through the tour on the bike. And my husband looked up and he goes, I'll never say that again. I'll never say you're dramatic again, ever. We also had a drunk guy come out one night that died. We have people that join our tours. They're not always paying guests.
They
They're
just
not
like to,
dead people.
follow.
So
They'll come over, hey, what's going on? And I'm a bit of a smartass. I don't know if you've noticed or not.
No.
So, like, drunk people come, and we'll usually let people sit for, like, a minute or two just to kind of get a vibe. Sometimes they walk away, and it's fine. You don't have any problem. But then, you've always got, like, you're in the middle of lines, and I was like, hey, what's going on here?
and we say, it's your intervention.
Yeah, it's your intervention. We all have notes about how much we love you, and we want you to hang out with us, and we're going to tell you things, and we want you to go with this guy. He's got a van over here, and we want you to leave with him. And
I bet that gets rid of him real quick.
Oh, they split. Lickety split, man. They're gone. So.
Yeah, they approach constantly, and one night a guy accidentally peed himself. And Devin told him, dude, you got to go somewhere. You peed yourself. Look at your pants. And he touched his pants to his crotch, and he put his hands down, and he goes, oh. He went right towards Devin's face. And Devin goes, dude, if you touch me with your pee-pee hands, I'm going to punch you.
This is in front of 25 people, mind you, okay? They're all watching, and I'm like, dude, you're out of control. Okay, you're out of control. Look at you. You're a mess. I mean, first of all, he was doing bicycle kicks.
He was laying on his back,
and
bicycling and peeing him on himself.
So
then he went in the bushes next to the courthouse, and the cops, we had to call 911 because he wouldn't stop. And the cops came, and they're looking for him in the bushes, and they found him.
I don't know if his friends were like, Jerry's drunk. Let's ditch him,
Yeah. Yeah. We've also had a guy that came running through the tour wearing a green plastic sweatsuit with bells, but he was running like cornholio.
Yeah, he had the whole
post like this, but bells all over his body.
And he had one of those green plastic sweatsuits, not like like the ones that you actually sweat in. Okay, like when you're working out,
like a poncho, kind of.
Yeah, I wouldn't know because I don't work out. So
all right, a minute each for both of you.
Yeah, go.
Favorite location and history behind it?
Condor Club, strippers.
No further explanation needed. I
Yeah,
guess.
exactly. Very haunting. Very delicious.
I would say Buena Vista Winery, oldest winery in California.
Also very delicious.
In Sonoma, and it is home to a cave-in for three wine caves. With one of them was killed. One of them got killed with Chinese miners got killed when it collapsed during an earthquake, and it's probably one of the scariest places I've ever been in my life.
Agreed.
Well, tell us again about your websites, about your tours, where folks find more information if they're down in the area. Do you guys offer wine along with these tours?
We do special packages. We also build events for people, and we are also working with B&Bs where we actually, if it's a rainy night, we'll come out to the B&B and do a little presentation for you. But we do a little bit of everything. So there's 2 tours in Napa, Downtown Ghost Walk and the Harlots, Hustlers, and Hysteria Red Light Tour. One in Sonoma. And Vacaville hasn't come back from COVID yet, but it will.
And we may or may not be working with somebody to do a couple of events, and we're trying to get a hold of Dacre Stoker, Sarah Lugosi,
and Vincent Price's daughter, Victoria Price, which we've all worked with them before. So, yes. All of our information, we're mostly active on social media. So, Facebook, Napa Ghost, Instagram, Napa Ghost, website is napaghost.com.
Thank you very much, Devin, Sisk, and Ellen MacFarlane from Napa
Thank
City
you.
Ghosts and Legends, Tours, Events, and Consulting. It was so good to have you both here, and safe travels back home.
Thank you.
Back from
Thank
the Oregon
you.
Ghost Conference in Seaside right after this.
Where are you? I miss you. Stay with me. If you leave, I'll never forgive you. Don't you run away.
You enter the property totally at your own risk. So we hope you don't get hurt, though.
Parabnormal. It's part paranormal and part abnormal. There's nothing ordinary about what's on your speakers. Into the Parabnormal with Jeremy Scott.
Sunday from the Oregon Ghost Conference here in Seaside. I am Jeremy Scott, joined by J. Allen Cross now. Has been involved in magic or the spirit world in one way or another since childhood and has turned his experience and expertise into the Oregon Wood Witch brand, aiming to provide reliable magic and paranormal education as well as quality products. He's also a member of the White Light Paranormal Insight team. J. Allen, good to have you here on the program.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So how did you get involved in magic? And I noticed that you spell magic without a K. Sometimes folks spell it with a K and without a K.
Absolutely. The K tends to be rather controversial depending on who you're talking with during the day. So sometimes you put it on, sometimes you don't. I ended up in the kind of magical work because it's kind of a family thing. I come from a very magically involved family, especially on my mother's side. Everyone kind of has a little something going on there. I have either cousins who are all either healers or also investigators or also working as witches, things like that. So it was something that kind of came very naturally to me.
Do you not use the term witchcraft?
I do. It's more of a contextual thing. So
Okay.
some of my family members identify as witches, some of them don't. It's also depends on kind of where you live, whether or not that's a safe or acceptable thing to do.
So are there different characteristics of witches, you know, just depending on, like, I don't know, from whatever advantage point you're coming at from?
Yeah, it also kind of depends on which culture you're from. So technically, witches and witchcraft speak specifically about being from Britain or kind of the England area, whereas, you know, I come from a Mexican background where the witches over there are called brujas or brujos. Then you also have different forms in that as well, where you have hechiceros or hechiceras, which are like sorcerers, which is also different. So it depends on where you're from, depends on your culture, depends on a lot of things of how one might identify as a magical practitioner.
What angle do you come out from?
That's a wonderful question. It kind of depends on the day. At the moment, I do identify as a folk witch because I do kind of blend both witchcraft and folk magic, which are a little bit different. But I kind of find a home in both worlds.
Folk magic. Can you expand upon that term?
Yeah, so the folk magic is essentially the magic of the people. So it's things that a lot of folks are familiar with, but they don't often understand that it's magic.
Okay.
So things like if you've ever thrown salt over your shoulder, then that is folk magic that you have practiced.
Kind of like, I don't know, maybe, what's the word I'm using for, it's eluding me now, superstitions.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes, there's
been
a
a
lot
long
of
weekend, Jay.
superstition involved. Yeah, it's kind of witchcraft, but demystified.
Exactly. So is there when people are, like you said, throw salt over the shoulder? Is there some sort of history behind that ritual?
I'm sure there is. I have no idea what it is, but
okay. So that's not something that you use.
I mean, I've done it before, but it's not something that I practice ritualistically. You know.
So it's not part of what you do per se.
Not necessarily.
All right. So, do you also encounter negative entities during your work?
Yes, especially in the work that I do as a paranormal investigator. Also, I do occasionally get called to people's homes when they're having kind of some paranormal disturbances. I often market myself locally as a paranormal handyman, so whatever's kind of going on, you call me, I come see if I can fix it.
Okay. So you do like homes and businesses and that sort of thing, people who have, attachments of some kind?
Sometimes. Sometimes people have attachments. Sometimes they've simply acquired an entity one way or another. There's many ways you can do that, and it's set up shop, in their guest bedroom closet or in their basement or something like that, and needs to be kind of taken out. So
we spent a lot of time this weekend talking about some, negative entities and how to get rid of them. What angle do you come at that from?
So the process tends to be kind of complicated, and it is always depending on a case-by-case basis because no two cases are going to be alike when you show up. So being able to adapt is always really important. But I find that there are some things that are really helpful for getting a negative entity out of a home. One is prevention is always key. Making sure your house is cleansed regularly, it's clean, things like that will help make sure nothing ends up setting up shop in your home. But if you do end up with one, your normal cleansing rituals that you do that, burning cleansing incense, using cleansing waters, things like that, can be very helpful in removing them. But I find that it's most helpful if you pair the cleansing with a calling in of something that is like a benevolent higher power of some sort at the same time. That creates the biggest shift and then gets the entity to be removed fastest.
How do these negative entities function? Is there something that they need to survive?
Depends on the entity. A lot of the times what they're looking for is fear, because that acts as food for them.
Yeah.
And so they enter a home, set up shop in it, and then do what they can to create fear. Some of them will feed on things like sadness. So they will find people who are prone to things like depression and then worsen their symptoms as a way of getting food. So there's a few different ways that they'll go about it.
What about contributing factors? Is that a big thing? There's sometimes, because we talked earlier with William and with Vivien, one agrees in evil entities and one doesn't, and so are there things that will lead someone to be more attached than say another?
Sure. I mean, our own personal constitutions as well as our habits will make a difference. If we're prone to being afraid at the slightest thing, then that makes us an easy target. Similarly, if we aren't in a very stable place with either our mental or physical health, that will make us a target as well as some of our personal habits about our home. So I was talking earlier about kind of cleanliness. Or being organized. A lot of clutter and a lot of mess in a home will actually end up creating kind of the perfect atmosphere or a perfect environment for an entity to make a home in.
What about the role of adolescence? Does that play a role? Because I've heard in some of the cases, particularly noisy ghosts, poltergeists, that sort of thing, that was at least in the early days of investigation. They said, well, it's the teen that you got living in the home, and I don't think that is now an acceptable answer.
I think it's not the only acceptable answer. I think that does contribute to it when you do have teenagers, but people are often surprised to find out that you can have poltergeist phenomenon produced by fully grown individuals. And in my experience, too, the poltergeist phenomenon that is produced from a child versus one that is produced from a fully grown adult human is going to be very different. The ones that are produced by children tend to be very mischievous, tend to be very kind of fun, maybe a little inappropriate, but the ones that are produced by full-grown adults tend to be a bit more sinister.
So does it come from the mind? Do you think that the mind has something to do with it?
Truth is, we have no idea, but that's the idea at the moment, is that it's kind of reoccurrent or unintentional psychokinetic activity.
I was going to say psychokinesis. So some sort of influence there. We just don't know exactly from what, I guess, right?
Definitely. And some of the most kind of famous lab-tested psychokinetics, like I believe her name was Nina Kulagina. She was a former poltergeist agent, someone who had produced one as a younger person. And there was another one in Poland as well. So,
how do you determine if an entity is harmful? Because that might be the what sends someone over the edge. They can live with ghosts, they can live with spirits, because we've learned those are two different things. Maybe they can live with demons, because not all demons are evil or entity. So the first part is to determine whether or not one of these entities is harmful, and then obviously going about dealing with it after that. But how do you determine whether an entity is harmful?
Same way that we do with how we determine whether or not people are harmful. We see if they're creating a negative impact
Except
on
they
the
don't
people.
have a rap sheet.
Right, exactly. They don't have a rap sheet. But see if they're making a negative impact on the people that they're coming in contact with. So if the family is just, maybe getting a whiff of cigar smoke every now and then the entity or the spirit there is probably just, some old guy who lived there before. But if they're getting scratched or bitten or getting violently ill for no reason, things like that, then we have to look at potentially this is a harmful entity.
So can you use witchcraft and some of these magical techniques to then spell or banish or whatever these entities from the premises?
Absolutely. It's not always quite that cut and dry, but the thing that I like about having a witchcraft background while doing this type of work is that when you do witchcraft, you are taught to manipulate and direct and move around energy. And when we're able to do that, then we are also able to then affect spirits on kind of their own home turf in a lot of ways. Whereas you can't really, shove a spirit, but if I can, send out a massive energy, then that's also going to affect them in a way that a shove might.
Now, involved with White Light Paranormal, you do run-of-the-mill paranormal investigations. I say run-of-the-mill because not every home or every place is haunted, or we think they're haunted, or you'd want to bring an investigator in. What has been the most extreme case that you've been involved in?
Ooh, we've had several, and because we work all through kind of like the Portland, Lower Washington areas, and my part on the team, so I work as psychic medium and occult specialist, but I also kind of specialize in the negative entity removal for the team. So if they're like, hey, it sounds like there's Satan in the basement, we're going to send in Joshua. That's where I come in. And so one of the things, we were called to a bar in Portland, we'll just leave it at that, where I was first and formally introduced to a spirit I've come to call Clyde, rather affectionately.
Clyde.
Who's known most commonly...
Clyde's coming up next on the
show. Oh,
show.
really? Do we have a Clyde coming up next?
Yes,
spooky.
Yes, we do.
That's spooky. I love that. No, I've named him that. Most people know them as the Hat Man, or the Top Hat Man, who is a very tall, thin spirit that wears, often seen as in like a top hat or a stovepipe hat. Whenever
it's not Rocky, is it?
No, it's not.
His hat's too small.
Yes, not quite jaunty enough, but like similar flair. Very, very dapper spirit. The first one I've ever ran into that's actually wearing like the suit and tails with the gloves, the whole 9 yards.
So like a previous era.
Yeah, a little bit. And then I'm speaking with the spirit, and I'm like, hey, you're freaking people out here in this bar. I'm going to need you to, get out of here. And as I'm speaking with the spirit, I'm realizing that something's wrong, that its skin does not seem to fit it well. A lot of the only thing I can really compare it to is in Men in Black, when the guy is wearing the farmer, essentially.
Okay.
It was very much like that. And so we're halfway through this conversation. I finally just kind of look at it and go, you're not a human spirit, are you? And at the moment I confronted it about it, it kind of lost its glamour, its ability to hold that. And so it gave me this big grin with all these shark teeth in it. And that was the biggest nope I think I've had in a really long time.
That it wasn't going to go.
Yeah, it was not going to go at the time. We ended up being able to get it out. But that was the first time I ran into the Hat Man. And since then, I ran into them several more times, to the point that I eventually put it into Google and came up with so many stories.
Did you come across the name of Heidi Hollis, perhaps? because she is the author who's written a lot about that phenomenon, the Hat Man phenomenon. She's actually been on the program here before talking about this. I'm just wondering if you're familiar with her research.
I'm not, but I would love to be in contact with that.
I think you should get in touch with her because she's had these experiences and she's made a lot of connections to them. How many Hat Men have you think you encountered?
I would say probably a good handful. I would say probably about 6 in kind of either around in investigations that I've been doing or visits that I've had since originally running into them personally.
What era do you think that these Hat Men exist from? I mean, based on, the clothing and then that sort of thing. You have any idea?
That's a great question. Not entirely certain. There is an old Native American legend. I believe it's from the Seneca Nation, where they have a spirit very similar that they refer to as High Hat.
Mm-hmm.
That's very old. So it could come from all kinds of places.
It could. So how did you get this Hat Man entity out of the bar?
A lot of elbow grease, some incense, some prayer, and some spell work. Ended up getting it out eventually.
So you mentioned incense. I'm trying to expand that. So like sage and some of these other things that people use. We've heard that can actually stir up activity. Has that been your experience, or does it depend?
It depends. In my experience, it can stir it up if you don't do it correctly. It's not necessarily that the substance itself is at fault. It's the fact that people start it and then stop halfway through once activity begins to start. And the reason why the activity ends up kind of kicking up while you're doing the cleansing is because it's trying to get you to stop. And then so people start it and then they don't finish it. And then they end up with a big mess on their hands. So you need to, you need to go forth, finish it, and actually do it with enough energy put behind it in order to make it effective.
Are there spells or prayers or whatever you want to call it that you do before leaving a site?
Every one of them is different, but I do tend to use a lot of prayers in it. Coming from a folk magic background, it's not uncommon for me to utilize Catholic prayers. So things like Our Fathers, Hail Marys, certain Psalms, things like Psalm 91 is one that will be pulled out quite frequently.
So how do you know if these entities are gone or if they're just being dormant?
There's a very distinct feeling when they leave.
Like maybe a change of the energy or something?
Yes, a really big shift to the point that, and it's so funny because when I teach negative entity removal, I always get that question, like, how do I know it's gone? And I'm like, you will know, because the change is so dramatic that I often get goosebumps when it happens. Then I invite the family back into their home and they're like, it feels completely different in here. It feels lighter. I've even been told several times that it sounds different in their home, and they're not able to explain what that means. But that's something that I've heard several times, that their home just simply sounds different afterwards.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure they feel a sense of relief,
Yes.
just, overall, that they're able to go about their lives without, that burden on them.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. You're writing a book, The Witch's Guide to the Paranormal. So talk us through that and what angle you... we obviously know what angle you approach it from, but what do you deal with in the book?
Well, my goal with the book is whenever I write a book, I like to take two worlds that don't tend to go together and then just squash them together as hard as I can. So that's what I'm kind of doing with this one. So what I'm trying to do with this book is teach people who may have a witchcraft background how they can be effective on a paranormal investigation team. So in the book, I go into, I talk about paranormal lingo, I talk about the gadgets, I talk about forming a team, and then I go into each of the 4 types of haunting. So whenever we have a haunting, it's going to fall into one of 4 categories. It's going to either be a residual haunting, a poltergeist, a human earthbound spirit, or an inhuman spirit entity. And so I go through all 4 of these, and I talk about what they are, how to identify them, and what their remedies are, and how to fix them. Because my goal isn't just to create more folks that are coming in here just to take pictures or whatever of the activity, but also to actually be able to fix it once
Yeah.
they get there.
Yeah.
And then I go into spells, types of cleansings, things like that that are helpful in this work. And then I end it with how to work with clients and some things, some trouble you may run into, some personalities you may run into, and how I've effectively dealt with all of those challenges.
Is, in your experience, is there one of those 4 kinds of hauntings, or are certain ones more prevalent than others?
I think it depends on your area a lot of the time. So places like New England have a lot more of what we call a residual haunting, which is like memory that is built up. Or a good example of that would be something like Gettysburg, where people can still kind of hear gunfire in the morning sometimes, or cannons.
Phantom battles, that sort of thing.
Yeah, things like that, where it's not necessarily an intelligent, sentient haunting as much as it is a memory that is being replayed in the space. Or there's also some theories or some ideas that the mineral deposits around in an area will actually increase your likelihood of certain types of haunting. So I think it kind of depends on where you're located.
How does one get into magic and witchcraft and that sort of thing?
Very carefully. I highly recommend picking up some books from reputable sources. So kind of go online, find a book that looks good for you, kind of look at who the author is, look at if it's received good feedback from the magical community, and then also talk to your friends. If you have friends that are into witchcraft, talk to them, see what their favorite books are.
Finally, tell us about the Oregon Wood Witch brand and where we can find information about you online.
You can find me mostly right now on Instagram. My handle is @OregonWoodWitch with only 1 underscore in between the words. I have a few people right now attempting to be me on Instagram by adding extra underscores between the words, but if you find the one with just 1 underscore between Oregon, Wood, and Witch, then you will find me.
That is you. And what kind of products do you offer?
So it kind of depends on what I'm able to make at the time. I try to monthly, every couple of months, do a shop update where I make small batch magical oils for spell work. Sometimes I provide soaps or candles, things like that, or charms, talismans, amulets, things like that.
Fantastic. J. Allen Cross, thank you so much for coming on here with us at the Oregon Ghost Conference in Seaside. We will be back after these messages from the Oregon Ghost Conference at the Seaside Civic and Convention Center right after this.
What you believe might not be. Step into the zone of the vast unknown. UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, conspiracies and cover-ups. Into the Parabnormal we go.
What's really the truth? Into the paranormal, separating fact from fiction.
And here we are back at the Oregon Ghost Conference in Seaside 2022 edition. I'm Jeremy Scott here with Clyde Lewis of Ground Zero, who I don't think at this point, Clyde, especially around these parts, you need much of an introduction. And, of course, nobody needs to tell you how to use a mic either.
I don't know. I mean, do I sound okay?
You sound great.
I'll put on my good voice for today. How's that sound?
As opposed to
regular voice, I sound like this. It's hey guys, what's up? I don't know. No, I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
You've never been one of those radio pukers.
No, I don't like that. There's a guy that we hear on our show. Well, he's not on our show, but he does a thing, and it's just you listen to him. He's going, and I'm like, oh, you can't. You don't talk that way when you go home to your wife.
You don't. No.
Hi, honey. I want to have sex. What's up?
But you probably get it a lot in public. Hey, can you do that radio voice for me?
No, I used to do that radio voice, but doesn't it piss you off to know that everybody, you were told not to puke when you were in radio broadcasting school. Every puker and their dog gets work. Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah.
You listen to TV shows. Join us today for a pizza at Pizza Hut. It's like, okay, why?
I mean, maybe that sells stuff to a certain point.
Well, I mean, I used to, the guy that used to do the KTEL records. I was that guy when I was first starting in radio. Fun from KTEL, goofy greats. I was that guy. But then I managed to, twist that into the Toxic Avenger. So when I do the Toxic Avenger voice, I'm the Toxic Avenger. It's that voice.
Yeah.
So that's
yeah. Well, you're a voice actor, right?
Yeah. Well, I've been one. Now I'm more serious because I do these paranormal type shows. But yeah.
I mean, is it really serious?
Well, yeah. It's. Well,
I mean, it is.
Well, I just had a big. What is it? You know, here we are. We're on the 25th anniversary of the Phoenix Lights, the 25th anniversary of Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
It will be the 25th anniversary of Princess Diana dying in August. And that was the time I really got serious about the paranormal. Because before, when I first started Ground Zero, it wasn't about, believing. It was about kind of snickering and laughing about what my father used to tell me all the time. Because he used to come up with these conspiracy theories, and I thought he was kind of crazy.
So you're saying you weren't necessarily a believer when you first got started?
No, I wouldn't say that. I was raised in it, and I found it fascinating. In fact, the first show I ever did was I played records backwards, Paul is Dead type of thing. And it's because when I was a kid, I'd hear those shows like Paul is Dead, that kind of stuff. And I was thinking, is there any truth to that? And I wanted to find out on my own. In fact, it was one of the first things. I had a colleague that he used to run a BBS. That was back when BBSs existed, because for all you kids at home that don't know what a BBS is, it was before the internet, before, having a website. And he ran a BBS, and the BBS was, he was able to get me all of the clues to the Paul is Dead mystery with the Beatles. And I did that as a show. And then I had David John Oates on.
Yeah.
My next show, because I heard that he would play things backwards, and I thought it was really cool. So that's how I began, because I thought, oh, this is funny, this is interesting, this is fun. I'd tell stories and, scary stories at night, and I would say it was like, bedtime stories for grown-ups. But then after 1997, I was, we dealt with the UFO situation with Phoenix, and then we dealt with the Heaven's Gate cult.
Yeah.
And I happened to I was corresponding with someone that was on the away team. He was in a band called Dharma Combat. His name was Daryl Johnson. And I had no idea I was corresponding with a member of the Heaven's Gate cult until I got a phone call from the FBI telling me that I did a show where it was during a partial eclipse of the moon. I walked outside, saw a hail bop, saw the moon, and said, hey, it would be a great night for any weirdo cult to commit suicide. And sure enough, that night.
And, of course, this was just a statement that you made.
Right. Yeah. I made the statement, but then the FBI knew that I was corresponding with a member of the Heaven's Gate cult, and I had no clue.
That you didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know. I said, I don't know who he was. But they asked me, they said, do you know anybody that's with Higher Source? That's what they called. They didn't call it Heaven's Gate. They called it Higher Source. And I never heard of Higher Source. And but then after I talked with one of my producers at the time, his name was Kurt, he said, yeah, he attended a Higher Source meeting in Park City, Utah. And I didn't know. But this guy, Daryl Johnson, was writing me because he had a band called Dharma Combat. It was a term that Jim Keith, the late Jim Keith, came up with. And his band did a song called Meslim, which was about a staged alien landing. And come to find out that members of the Heaven's Gate were writing war games for the government. They were working for an advanced AI group. They were writing programs for the government. They were war games that were basically using alien invasions as the scenarios. And so it was kind of weird, because it makes me wonder if they really committed suicide or if they were killed because they were working on these projects.
What's your gut tell you?
What's that?
What does your gut tell you?
I would think that Marshall Applewhite was probably an MK Ultra guy, and this was probably something that was well thought out and well planned. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to that, whether it be Jim Jones or Charles Manson, they have their moment where they gather people together, they do their job. I mean, Manson's job was to ruin the hippie movement, and he did it. And then they ended up all killing, everybody at the Tate LaBianca murders, and then many of them went to prison. Some of them died, and now Manson's gone. Once they do their job, that's it. They don't have to do anything anymore, and they either go down in history with a bang like Jim Jones did, or they or Marshall Applewhite, or they end up going to prison for a long period of time where they can analyze their brains and speculate, like Sirhan or Son of Sam or any of those guys.
Quantum mechanics is something that you presented about here at the Oregon Ghost Conference, which might be an interesting angle for those who were, typically used to, bare bones paranormal investigation kind of stuff. But you've always come at these topics from a unique perspective. Your topic, Quantum Hauntum, yesterday, I think fits right in with everything else we've discussed here on the weekend.
Well, I think one of the difficulties that, we have when we claim to be ghost hunters or mediums or whatever, there's got to be a reason why consciousness, excuse me, there's a reason why consciousness is becoming I guess you could call it panpsychism, is becoming a topic with scientists. And the reason why is because they're so concerned about consciousness and how they can, somehow consciousness can be, quantified or put into an avatar of some kind, because they want to be able to transfer consciousness into another vessel, like an android or a computer or something like that, downloading the spirit. And so a lot of scientists are looking at it from a quantum standpoint. And what I find interesting is that, ghost hunters, when they look for ghosts, they use a lot of electronic equipment, electromagnetics.
Perhaps too much.
Yeah. And they use it, and there's a reason why electromagnetic frequencies change when ghosts show up, is because I think that we're looking at an electromagnetic anomaly. We're looking at something that would be considered dimensional, and that at times, we don't realize that what we're doing is we're getting an influence from another dimension. When you look at EVP and when you look at ITC and you look at all the ways that we can hear voices and we can get things on film, I do not necessarily mean that if we see, I don't necessarily believe that if we see these things, it proves life after death.
If we hear them.
Or if we hear them. I think either we're dealing with psychokinesis, which a lot of mediums believe is psychokinesis, or we're dealing with dimensional electromagnetic transference. And that's when you get into the quantum physics of it all. That's when you get into quantum entanglements, which Einstein called it spooky actions at a distance. And that's because he didn't want to get into that. But there were people like Edison, for example, that thought, all these table tappers that are out there, I want to prove them wrong, and I want to create a device, electromagnetic device, that with enough power, I'd be able to contact the dead. Tesla did the same thing. Everybody wanted to connect everybody thought with some advanced technology we'd be able to contact the dead, or contact spirits or entities that are dimensional. And I think that's where we begin, because I was talking about Dr. Lanza, who has a book called Biocentrism, which he believes that consciousness is like a packet. Okay, it's a packet of data that we transmit, and these data packets are everywhere. And when we die, we release the data packet, and it goes into, it's all around us. All of the data is around us, and it's just that this data packet, whatever it is, you can either choose to stay in the body, which we have near-death experiences. It can leave the body and go to another body, which is why we have walk-ins and we have, reincarnation. Or it can just leave the body and not come back, go to some other place. And I think that's a very, astute idea, because, it's the heaven and hell aspects are what we get from religion. But if science was to prove with quantum mechanics that there is life after death, it's just to reduce ourselves down to something as small as tachyon, and we can't be seen and we just go away. Or the orbs we see are a manifestation of the tachyon, where we start seeing orbs that form together a huge apparition. It's because everything we're realizing now with the new electronics we have is pixelated. We live in pixels.
Yeah.
And so I think that, when we break down a lot of the materials we have, the inventions we have, they're able to pick up what they haven't been able to pick up before. It's one of the reasons why we're now seeing these Tic Tac UFOs, is because before the military had no way of picking up on them, but now with the new equipment they have, they're picking up on them.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same goes with paranormal. I think that, like you said, maybe we're using these electromagnetic gadgets too much, and we need to rely on, well, first of all, spiritual mediumship, but then we use them as tools, not as gimmicks. I've always had a problem with the gimmicky aspect of ghost hunting, and I always talk about it openly because I think, in fact, I even said it at my speech. When I spoke to it yesterday, I said one of the things that really bothers me is that people who go on ghost hunts and you have this medium, and the medium says all the time the same old things like, well, we want them to cross over. Why? Why do you want them to cross over? Are you like Superman?
Unless they're negative, why?
Yeah, I mean, why are you so? I mean, I think it's narcissistic in a lot of ways to believe that you have the power to send somebody to the other side. And it's like I tell people, if you want to really piss me off, go to a ghost hunt and say something like, "Go to the light, go to the light." And you know what I'll say to that? BS. They don't have to go to the light. It's like me going to you and saying, "Jeremy, go to the bathroom."
Eventually, I'm going to get there.
Well, eventually you are, but if you don't have to go to the bathroom, and I keep saying, no, here's something. Take off your shoes and then go to the bathroom. And you'll say, Clyde, no, I don't have. Shut up. Go to the bathroom. And you get to a point where you're so frustrated. You say, look, I don't have to go to the bathroom. Don't make me go to the bathroom. I don't have to take off my shoes and go to the bathroom. I don't have to be naked and go to the bathroom. You don't tell me what to do. It's like, who are you to command a spirit to go somewhere?
Ghosts are people too, right?
Right. Ghosts are, and the consciousness, it's like talking to consciousness and telling it to go be somewhere. No. Leave it alone and analyze it and understand it before you just go throwing it to some light that you have no idea what it is.
So do you believe that people don't have the power to remove entities?
Yes, they have the power to remove entities, but I don't believe they have the power to command spirits that are consciousness. I mean, demons, I think, are another story because I think that demons are kind of like a virus. Demons are kind of like, it's like the idea that if a demon is around you, it's there to torment you. And so there are things you can do to remove it. On the other hand, if you're a spirit that's ambivalent, or you're a spirit that's not malignant, then what's your point in getting them to cross over? They're here for a reason, okay? And if you just ignore them and say, go to a nunnery, or go, you're just yelling at them to go do something they wouldn't normally do, who are you? I mean, unless you're a demon and you're going to cast out a demon, you better know damn pretty well what you're doing when you're casting out a demon. And I always get in arguments with people, too, about this whole Jesus thing, where everybody says, well, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, I tell you to leave.
Why?
Well, you know what? If I'm a jinn, all right, and I was created by some Islamic magician, which they're not supposed to do, if I was a jinn or a homunculi, and I was created by some alchemist magician, and I don't know who the hell Jesus Christ is, I'm not going to go away. If I'm a Mesopotamian demon that got, dug out of a grave somewhere in Iraq, I'm not going to care or worry about who Jesus is. So you're going to have to do some pretty damn good work to get rid of me.
Convincing.
Yes. And it's not just going to be holding the hand of the square and saying, I get the hand Satan, because it's not going to work. I mean, you have to know, you don't use Jesus as a weapon. It just doesn't work. Angels are there for weaponry. Other spirits are there for weaponry. But I just find it, people who are Christ-haunted do that kind of thing. They go in and they think that the Bible's a weapon, or they think that they use it like it's some sort of magic trick. And I just think that kind of, using Jesus as a magic trick or a parlor trick, or using even Satan as a magic trick, I think just makes it all look hokey. When the powers and the things we're dealing with here are what makes us who we are. They animate us.
Yeah.
And there are chaotic powers, and there are organized powers. If you feel a disorganized power, it's going to take some time to organize it. It's like, Ghostbusters. One of the things they got right is that when you have a disorganized apparition, you're going to have to find ways to bit by bit, piece by piece, get it into that box, okay?
Yeah.
You just don't walk up to the Slimer and say, hey, Slimer, go to hell. It's not going to do it. It just doesn't work. But a lot of people think they can do that. And I think that when we're looking on a quantum level, which I tried to explain, and a lot of people I think liked what I had to say, it just, I mean, we're living in a very complex matrix, and everybody's realizing this. And if we're living in a complex matrix, it's not black and white. And there are rules, I think, that these spirits play by.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there are things that they can do and things they can't do, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're dead. It means that they're in another place. And every once in a while, because we live in this existence where it's like slices of bread, you have a whole, or decks of cards. You take a deck of cards and you kind of like spread it out, and the cards are overlapping. That's how dimensions are. Or you take slices of bread and you kind of spread them out, and they're overlapping.
That's how I've kind of tried to explain some of this stuff, is that there is the overlap.
Yeah.
And so maybe there's something to this whole quantum mechanics thing, not only explaining ghosts, but maybe even explaining Bigfoot and explaining UFO sightings.
Yeah.
And I know people have a hard time taking blanket, solutions to some of these dilemmas, but I think you've hinted on something.
Well, I always say that I like to keep my peas separated from my potatoes. You know what I'm saying? It's like, not that I don't do it. I mean, not like I'm not.
Occasionally they'll roll into the potatoes and it's a mess.
Occasionally, put some peas in your potatoes in them at the same time, or put the corn and potatoes.
Especially
in
one
at
of
the
those
same time.
banquet TV dinners,
exactly.
they tend to always get mixed up.
It's a banquet TV dinner of the paranormal right here with Jeremy Scott. You're right, but here's the thing. I think that one of my biggest hang-ups is when I do hear them mixing the paranormal, when I hear that Bigfoot's a dimensional being or UFOs are dimensional or whatever, or when aliens are demons. I always gets under my skin too. That doesn't mean I dismiss it. It just means that why don't we just take everything a little bit of a time and not overwhelm ourselves with speculation. I had a hard time with Bigfoot up until I met Lloyd Pye, and he taught me that having an ape in the mountains is not that far-fetched. But having a space ape like Chewbacca in the mountains is a little bit more hard to take, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to agree there. I mean, either Bigfoot is like Chewbacca, the Nephilim's pet, I guess, which sounds hokey, or he's a mountain ape that's been up there as a species of mountain ape that we haven't discovered yet, or a hybrid of a bear and something else. It's like a chupacabra, for example. Chupacabra. Every time I look on the news, you see some hairless dog walking around. They go, it must be a chupacabra. Oh, no, it's not a chupacabra. What do they have to compare it to? They don't, because they don't know what a chupacabra is. And I remember when I first called the Department of Agriculture in Puerto Rico, when the chupacabra first came out in 1995, 1996, they said it was a wild dog. So chupacabra is a wild dog. I'm going, okay, it's a wild dog. So for the longest time, I'm thinking it's a wild dog, it's a wild monkey, something like that. No, it went from a wild dog to a wild monkey to something with quills on it and looking like an alien creature and smelling like sulfur. That's where the tall tales come from.
Yeah.
But if you boil it down to the bare minimum and say, it was either a wild monkey or a wild dog, then that's how we find a chupacabra. Or if you boil Bigfoot down to just a mountain ape, it's easier. From there, if we find out that mountain ape walks into an area of the woods and just disappears or dematerializes, and we see it and we know it, then we have to go into the idea that it's a dimensional being.
So how do we boil down ghosts?
Well, I mean, you boil down ghosts in the same way you do quantum mechanics. You look at it from the point of that we don't see them. Or here's another thing that I brought up. It was something called the Troxler effect. The Troxler effect is where the brain tunes things out because we're so used to having them around us. Like right now,
the masks.
Are you wearing socks?
Yes.
Before I asked you, did you care that you were wearing socks?
No.
No. You know why?
It's natural.
Your brain tunes it out.
Yeah, it's something that we become.
Yeah.
We just do it so often.
You put our socks on so often that when we're sitting here talking to one another, we go, I don't think about my socks being on my feet. I just don't think about it. I don't think about that I'm wearing underwear or not. I don't think about it because I don't only think about it as if they're tightening around, parts of the body. But otherwise, you don't think about it. And that's what the Troxler effect is. The Troxler effect is that we have been so used to having things around us like spirits or whatever that we tune them out. The only time we tune them in is when we decide that we're going to look directly at a certain area, and these things start forming in front of us. It's like there's so many things going on behind you that you can't see, but the things in front of you are what matter. And so if you start seeing things, it's because your brain is tuning into it. That's why you need mediums. That's why you need people to tell you what you're seeing, because a lot of people say, well, I've never had a paranormal experience, none that you've known of.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because there was no one there to point out to you that you were having a paranormal experience. No one's there to point out to you that that orb you saw, or whatever it was an orb, okay? No one's there to tell you that that thing in the picture that you see, that you took a picture of, didn't belong there, okay? And so I think that's what it is. It's a matter of tuning the mind into seeing these things and knowing what to look for, knowing what to experience, whether it be the cold, whether it be, changes in electronic fluctuations or all those things. But when you're in the middle of it, you just don't know. And then something seems out of place and your brain finally clicks in and you go, oh my God, what was that? It's like, I had a Bigfoot experience and I wasn't planning on it, okay? I wasn't thinking about Bigfoot. I was basically at ECETI having coffee, talking with a bunch of people in that area that is the meeting area in that one place, and they have the little corridor and they have the little washing machines and everything. So I'm drinking my coffee, me. We've known each other long enough to know that I'm a grouchy son of a bee when I don't have my coffee, and I'm just like, whatever. And so I'm sitting there grouchy along, just being all grouchy, my hair a mess, and sitting there in, shorts. And I look over and I see this guy standing near the orchard there where the apples are, and he's eating apples. He looks like a big, muscular wrestler type looking dude. He's eating apples. And I notice he has this long, curly hair, kind of like what Robert Plant used to have, when he was in Led Zeppelin. And I'm thinking, God, who is this guy? He's just a muscle guy, maybe some security guard they got or some guy that just showed up, because I noticed he was just like this muscular dude. And then he looked at me, and his face was nothing like I had seen before. It would look like, how when you press your face against a window or you're wearing a stocking over your face, that's what it looked like to me. And the minute I saw that, I realized that's not a man. So the first thing I thought of when I saw it was Bigfoot. I thought, that's what I saw, Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And so I said it. I thought in my mind Bigfoot, and then I said Bigfoot. And I looked at everybody and go, no, look, Bigfoot. And they all looked, and the minute they all looked towards, he took off. He started running away. And they couldn't keep up with him because it was so fast. But still, the idea that you're looking at something that looks natural, and then it starts looking unnatural, your brain clicks in, and you're like going, wait a minute, I'm having a paranormal experience. Oh, my God. But it was also disappointing because if I just had my camera.
It's always like that.
And you don't think about that either.
No, you don't.
And another thing, too, is when people say things like, it's you get a blurry picture or whatever. Here's something to think about. I did a thing at a UFO conference once. I took a piece of paper. I said, does anybody have a piece of paper? So I crumpled it up, and I said, can I get some people to come forward with their cell phones? I said, I want you guys to all focus on me and get your cameras ready because I want you to take a picture of a UFO. So I crumpled up this piece of paper, and I threw it, and I go, there, snap the picture. And nobody got the picture of the ball. I said, that's what it is to get a picture of a UFO. If you get a picture of a UFO, you're damn lucky because you're not going to be able to get one because it's moving too fast. It's going to be blurry. You're not going to see anything. And I think people need to understand that because all I see are people going, oh, would you take it with a potato? No. How are you going to get something that's fast going through, super fast, without getting it blurry? And when are you going to be ready with your camera waiting for that UFO to go by?
Yeah,
You're
who's
not.
to say it doesn't have a way to repel itself?
No.
So even if you do see it and it's hovering there and you see it and you do take out your camera, take a picture, you may not get it. Clyde, final question for you because it was brought up earlier in the program that some ghosts have started to die off and that maybe they have a lifetime. Is that anything that you've had an experience with?
No, but there was a story that I can't remember who it was that was telling me about this, but there was it was Tracy Twyman. Apparently, from what I understand, there is I know this is going to sound crazy, but there are a number of mediums now and a number of people who are saying that there are wardens now that they have put in place, wardens that block sometimes spirits from talking to, and so it's an illegal act or it's an act of whatever to to talk with somebody from the other dimension or talk with somebody from the other side. So they have wardens, kind of like time wardens or dimensional wardens, that say no. And there was a guy that was a writer, and I can't remember his name offhand at the moment because it's like, there's so many things that go through my mind. But he wrote, he coined a phrase, and we all know what psychopomps are. Psychopomps are like what take you to the other side. Kind of like, what is Charon, the guy that does the river Styx, and you pay him money and he takes you to the other side of the land of the dead. Psychopomps. But then there are others that are called Mortgeist. It's German for the mortal ghosts, the ones that basically keep the spirit realm or the dimensional realm away from the living. So that seems to be what I've heard, is that it's not that they are dying off. It's not that they have a limited time. It's just that now more and more people want to try and get over into this other dimension, and they're now somewhere out there's a group of people who are saying, no, you can't do that. There's certain rules you have to play by if you're going to go travel into the other dimension. So that's what I've
It's like what you said earlier, not dead, they've just gone to another place. There's Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero here at the Oregon Ghost Conference in Seaside. Thanks so much, bud. Appreciate
Sure, no
it.
problem. Appreciate it.
We'll come back with more right after this.
Between twilight and the witching hour, there's a place we call Into the Parabnormal.
Live from the Oregon Ghost Conference in Seaside, I'm Jeremy Scott, and our broadcasts continue. As you heard there, the coasts of the Pacific Northwest certainly have a rich and a haunted history, folklore as well, as spirits of shipwreck victims, early settlers, drowned mariners are said to linger near the shores. And from ghostly treasure hunters eternally searching for buried gold to a graveyard filled with souls that meet violent ends, well, legends abound. And Ira Kitmacher here, he researches haunted graveyards of the Pacific Northwest. He's actually written the book called Haunted Graveyard of the Pacific Northwest, and he's with us here now live from the Oregon Ghost Conference. Hi, Ira. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. So how did you get involved in researching the history with graveyards? Was there a certain thing that happened in life that led you on this journey?
Actually, my background is not one that you would think would have led me to that, but I'll just very briefly tell you that I was actually a senior executive with the federal government in Washington, D.C. up until about 2.5 years ago. And I retired relatively early. My wife and I wanted to move as far from Washington as we could, and we chose the Pacific Coast, specifically the Long Beach Peninsula of Washington State. And I quickly found out or discovered that I wasn't ready to just sit and watch and look out at the ocean. I wanted to be doing things. So I have been writing books. This was the first one to be published. I've also been teaching courses at several universities, nearby universities, and keeping busy otherwise. But I've always been fascinated by haunted folklore. I grew up in Massachusetts. Of course, that area is rich with haunted folklore related to Salem and other places. But wherever I've gone, I've always taken haunted tours, whether it's at the Gettysburg Battlefield or Sleepy Hollow, New York, or wherever it might be. So, so researching and writing about haunted folklore is one of my favorite things.
When we talk about graveyards, I mean, those might be some of the most haunted locations that there could be because the people who are there are dead.
Right. And I should say that the title Haunted Graveyard of the Pacific specifically refers to the coast from Tillamook, Oregon, working your way up the Oregon coast, up the Washington coast, all the way up to Vancouver, Canada. And so the area specifically around Astoria, Oregon is referred to as the Graveyard of the Pacific. So it's more having to do with the shipwrecks, the over 2,000 ships that have sunk, the countless lives that have been lost, versus actual physical graveyards, although in the book I also do talk about several of the land-based graveyards as well.
So this could be graveyards that are likely buried.
Right. There are many cases of ships, again, over 2,000 ships sunk. These ships were of varying sizes, late 1800s into the early 1900s, although if you pick up a newspaper today, you will still find ships wrecking as of today. But in many cases, specifically in 11 cases, the crews of some of those 2,000 ships have never been found. So they could very well have a watery graveyard because their bodies were never discovered.
And a lot of these old lighthouses, as we heard in that report just a moment ago, carry their own history as well.
They certainly do.
At sea with folks who just did not survive for whatever reason.
Right. And several of the stories in this first book relate to the lighthouses. One of them is Terrible Tilly, which is off the coast of the Ecola State Park.
Yep.
And they're ghostly stories.
Actually, it's now for sale, from what I understand.
Really?
Yeah, $6.5 million if you care to venture.
Who is selling it?
I'll find out here. I just found that information in the last 2 days.
Well, it has a fascinating history, as I'm sure you know. And it's a location that the federal government knew it needed a lighthouse well into the 1880s. By the time it was finally built and went into service in 1881, ships were very happy to have it. Unfortunately, it did not arrive in time for one of the last ships to wreck on that rock on which Terrible Tilly sits. It was the Lupatia. It was a large British sailing ship. It's one of the more famous stories because the crew of 16 died. The only survivor was their puppy. But the folks who were just finishing up the building of that lighthouse could hear the crew of the Lupatia screaming hard to port and the creaking of the ship, but they couldn't save it. So, and I'll just keep going with that. Terrible Tilly has a rich history. There was an author who first was a lighthouse keeper there. His name was James Gibbs in the 1940s. He wrote a series of books about the graveyard of the Pacific. And he swore that he experienced ghostly presences at the lighthouse itself, the feeling of something choking him, something wrapping its hands around his throat, winds going by him, pressing against him. And then one of the stranger endings to the particular lighthouse was it was actually used as a columbarium, I believe in the late 1980s into the 1990s, which is another word for a place where human remains are kept, ashes. So Terrible Tilly has a rich history.
And actually, this was sold in 1978 for the asking price of $27,000, and then in 1980, that owner sold the property for $50,000 to a real estate developer. And those are the folks who currently own the property. It's actually the only offshore lighthouse in Oregon, and it's not one that is accessible. Right. On foot, basically by helicopter is the only way you get there, right. Which that's some spooky stuff right there.
Right, and the native tribes local to the area, the Clatsop and others, warned white settlers in the late 1800s to not try to build a lighthouse on that rock because it supposedly was cursed. Many of the native tribes were scared to death of ghosts and hauntings, and that's just added to the haunted folklore. The first surveyor of what became Terrible Tilly was swept out to sea and never seen again. Local folks were scared to work on it because of all the myths and the legends. So it's got a very rich history. It's not the only lighthouse in the area that I could talk about.
Yeah. So, but there are other lighthouses that have some history as well, and you talk about those in your book.
Right. One I can describe is actually in Washington State. It's at Cape Disappointment in southwestern Washington State, just over the Megler Bridge from Astoria, Oregon. And it's called Cape Disappointment because there was a Captain Mears, a British captain, who I believe it was 1788, who was said to be disappointed because he thought he didn't find the mouth of the Columbia River. Well, he was mistaken. He actually did find it. He thought it was a bay. But it was clear from early on that something was needed to help the ships that were wrecking regularly along the graveyard of the Pacific. And so the North Head Lighthouse was one of two lighthouses that were built at that location in Ilwaco, Washington. One was the North Head Lighthouse. The other one was Cape Disappointment Lighthouse. The North Head Lighthouse is still active, although it's automated. But one of the tales that is told in the book, that I tell in the book, and that has been told for many years, is in 1923, the lighthouse keeper and his wife, her name was Mary Personen. It was a very lonely existence to work at the lighthouses. They were isolated, and what's not widely known is that the second windiest lighthouse location in the country is at Cape Disappointment. And so Mary Personen was said to have been suffering from melancholia, depression, as it was called melancholia back then. And one day she took her dog Jerry out for a walk. The next thing you knew, Jerry came back, but Mary did not. And they went out searching for her, found her coat at the top of one of the cliffs at North Head Lighthouse, and they found her body at the bottom of the cliff. So they suspected maybe she committed suicide. She was depressed. But ever since then, ever since 1923, there have been stories of people saying they are seeing the spirit of Mary Passonen, both in the North Head Lighthouse as well as the house up there where she and her husband lived. So many, many strange stories.
And that's not to be confused with the Cape Meares Lighthouse. I noticed in that last story you mentioned the name Meares. So that
was Captain Meares of a British ship.
Is there a correlation between that one and Cape Meares?
There
maybe?
Probably is. I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. So what are some of the other graveyards, maybe those that aren't at sea, those on ground?
Well, I'll describe them as hauntings. There are many hauntings up and down the Northwest coast, the Pacific Northwest coast. And in the book, I talk about Portland, Oregon, which is rich with haunted tales, including those involving shanghaiing, or what it was called crimping.
Yeah.
The kidnapping of sailors basically to serve on board ships, and they called it shanghaiing because it either occurred in the town's Chinatowns or because the ships were heading towards Asia.
And you can actually still tour the Shanghai tunnels.
You can. It's fascinating tours. I've been through the one in Seattle. I've been through the one in Astoria. I have not been on the one in Portland yet, although I have read extensively about it. And it's thought that many of the ghostly presences that are reported in these underground tunnels are Shanghaied sailors who they were struck on the head or drugged, and the next thing they knew, they were on board a ship sailing out to sea, and their spirits are restless. And so those are some of the spirits. Others are said to be prostitutes who served inside those tunnels, and there were opium dens. Bunko Kelly was one of the best-known crimpers or Shanghaiers of the 1880s. He supposedly shanghaied over 2,000 men. He also coined the term for Astoria, Oregon, that it's the wickedest town in America for various reasons.
Do you have some favorites of these locations?
I do. I think very close to here, Cannon Beach is just down the road. And there's a story that I'm still surprised that people who live in Cannon Beach, many of them are not familiar with the story of Bandage Man. So Bandage Man, basically, we have our own version of the Mummy here on the Pacific Northwest coast. The Bandage Man has been reported since the 1950s, and he is said to go to primarily pickup trucks that are parked, or that were parked in the 1950s overlooking the ocean. Of course, there were teenagers inside the pickup trucks, and he would jump in the beds of the pickup trucks and would start rocking back and forth, and they would look behind him and they'd see this bandaged, bloody man, and they described his limbs as coming out at all strange angles, and that's been a story that's been passed along for decades now, starting in the 1950s. There's some speculation that that story was put out there to scare teenagers away from parking and having romantic rendezvous by the ocean, but these stories have persisted. The most recent one that I know of was in 2019. As I was working on the book, there was actually a woman who claimed, and she put it on Reddit, that she was visited by this man in bloodied bandages. And the book, there were several articles in the Astorian newspaper about the book, and she then reached out to me and told me her story, where she actually saw a bandaged man in 2019. So that's one of my most interesting ones, or famous stories that have come out of the area.
And I think what's also important to keep in mind here is that these aren't all public. You can't go visit all these. I mean, we talked about the Tillamook Rock one and how remote that is, but even those that you can access, maybe you shouldn't access.
That could be. An example of that is, and I'll plug something else I'm doing very quickly. Starting next month, I'm teaching a class on Pacific Northwest haunted folklore at Clatsop Community College. And I'm also going to be starting haunted trolley tours in the city, or on the Long Beach Peninsula of Washington State. But some of the stories that come out of Astoria, Oregon, you just mentioned you can't visit, like one of the sites. One of the sites is the Flavel House. Now you can visit the Flavel Mansion, which is a museum, and is said to be highly haunted. But you can't visit a second Flavel house, which is called the most haunted house in Oregon, and that belonged to a relative, another Flavel, who has a whole history to him. And when the county took over that house in the 1980s, they went in, they found strange things like bottles of bleach hanging from the ceiling and a knife, an unexplained knife, and one of the more bizarre things, a dead dog in the refrigerator.
Oh, wow.
So it's privately owned. You can't go into it, although there are photos of the house all over the internet.
All right, is there a certain way people should conduct themselves if they do go into one of these locations that are public?
Absolutely. They should be very respectful of privacy. I also should mention that I'm an attorney in addition to other things. So I'll say, legally speaking, you should be very respectful of people's privacy. You shouldn't be going up and knocking on private homes' doors, wanting to visit, whether it's the house where the Goonies supposedly took place, a Steven Spielberg movie, or the house I just described, the Flavel house. And if you do go into a public place, again, many places don't want you going in with your ghost hunting equipment and looking unless you actually have permission. When we do our course starting next month for the local college, I have the permission of the folks who run the Flavel House Museum, as well as the Liberty Theater in Astoria. But even there, we're going to be very respectful. We're not going to be going in with equipment or anything. We'll just be going in after we've had a class talking about these haunted stories.
You know, we talked about shipwrecks earlier and, you know, those buried graves and everything. But another thing that comes with the territory is the treasure that is found as well. You talk about that as well.
Right. So that also, I'm glad you raised that. That's another interesting story out of this immediate area. So Manzanita is another local town. And there's a story that in 1693, there was a Spanish galleon that wrecked at the base of Neocani Mountain, it's called, in Manzanita. And the natives, and I should say again that the natives were very frightened of ghosts and people who have died. That's why many native tribes buried their dead far from their villages. And in this region, many of them buried their dead inside canoes on islands along the Columbia River. But in this particular case, the native tribe reported that they saw this shipwreck in 1693. They saw the captain and about 30 crew carrying a chest, what sounded like a treasure chest, onto the shore. They took it on the shore, they took it partially up this mountain, and then they witnessed the captain shooting at least one of his crew, burying them with the treasure, supposedly because the captain knew that the natives were so afraid of the dead and wouldn't bother the treasure. Then he sailed off, supposedly sailed to Mexico, and the treasure has never been found. Another interesting part to all this is that Neocani Mountain, the state of Oregon, did allow the digging of holes and looking for the treasure up until 1999. And so it's also got the nickname of a mountain of 1,000 holes because treasure hunters were up there looking for the treasure. They never found it. Several treasure hunters lost their lives looking for the treasure. Again, it's been outlawed since 1999, but there have been haunted stories and ghost stories about whether it's the crew that were killed by the captain or the captain himself protecting the treasure, or again, the natives. So another fascinating location very close to here.
Absolutely, and I so appreciate you coming on and talking about some of this history with us. Tell us about the books and where folks can find more information about you, and also those new projects that you're working on.
Okay. And again, thank you for having me. This first book is called Haunted Graveyard of the Pacific. It's put out by Arcadia Publishing, the History Press. It's one company. Actually, earlier this week, they put out a report saying that they just came out with their best books of 2021 that they published, and it was listed in the top 20 out of the 900 books they published. I have a second book coming out from that same publisher in the summer of 2022 called Spirits Along the Columbia River. Similar themes in that it's this haunted folklore of the Pacific Northwest, although it's working your way inland along the Columbia River. And then I have another book coming out unrelated to this area called Monsters and Miracles. That'll come out in June. It's being published internationally by Amsterdam Publishers in the Netherlands, and it's more related to World War II and some of the supernatural underpinnings related to World War II.
Ira, thank you so much. I can't wait to read your book. It looks like a fascinating read, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing some of the history with us.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Ira Kitmacher, and that will wrap up our Oregon Ghost Conference weekend. My thanks to Rocky Smith, to Kristen Gray, to all of the volunteers who have made this possible, to you for listening, and each and every one of the 14 guests who you've heard over the past 5 hours of broadcast this weekend from the Oregon Ghost Conference in Seaside, Oregon. We'll talk to you next year, friends. Good night.